Get a little
Hello.
A
robot-y.
little bit.
How's it going, everyone? Hi, Kelsey.
What's up?
Hi.
Hey,
So we have a special guest. Do you see who's here?
what? Oh wait, over
Sandwich
here.
in
Yes.
between.
It's Beauty and the Two Beasts.
Oh, stop.
We're actually like a Frazetta painting.
Yeah, right.
That's funny.
So
I'm
You
Beauty,
guys.
right? No.
You're
Oh,
Beauty, Kelsey.
okay,
I'm the Beast.
okay.
so this is really, really exciting. We had planned to have Sarah on, I think in December or January, and I got real busy with work because it's kind of like what your grandpa did with Al Cap, where I went from an assistant role to basically kind of having to carve out my own career. And it's challenging, the stories of your grandfather having to go into the city and try to get work after that are
Look, he's going right into this. This guy's
Yeah.
like loaded with the history. He's a
Yeah,
fanboy.
I know he's gonna teach me some things today. Little refreshers.
no.
No, but the pressure's on now. That's where you're at.
Right.
So
Well, let's do a
Great.
quick welcome of the chat. Hello,
Yeah.
chat, everybody. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Sarah, for being here. This is such a great time, and thank Richard for being here. He's often not showing up on this show. Oh no, that was me. All right, so
No. We've actually. I don't know if I could do Super Fun Sunday as well now without you, to be honest.
Well, yeah, that's true because I bring the super fun, right?
Well, I'm not as outgoing.
Oh, look at the stumbling! Oh my gosh,
I'm not as outgoing.
I'll have to up my game.
It's tough. I get nervous. I have so much anxiety going live like this with a guest. It was a lot of pressure because I want to make sure that Sarah has a good time. So
I'm already having a good time.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, see, real quick, I don't know if you want a super chat, you can assure that your questions will get answered, but I will be looking at the chat and writing down your questions. So if you got anything you would like to ask, please chime in, and I'm going to be writing it down. And whenever Rich wants to get some questions from the audience, I'll have them ready.
Definitely. So we have like a loose structure of what we were going to try to do today. So obviously, Sarah, introduce yourself because not everyone is going to know exactly who you are. Some people think that you're Frank's daughter, and so you explain the family dynamic and what you're up to, so we can get on that.
Yeah, great. So I'm Sara Frazetta. I'm the first of 11 grandchildren that Frank Frazetta had. So I was kind of raised like his daughter because they were really excited to have a baby in the family.
Sure.
And my mother is Holly Frazetta. That's his daughter. And I run a company called Frazetta Girls to honor my grandfather's legacy. And we do merchandising, licensing, and we're building the Frazetta brand. So that's who I am.
Comics are coming.
Comics are coming. Oh, we have so much in the wheelhouse right now, and like some things I can say, some things I can't say. I can say we have a Taschen book coming out, which I'm super excited. It will be like the Frazetta Bible. And this has been a passion project for me for years now because of the fans. And I just hear we need the books, and that's just something like with a name like Taschen with their publishing abilities and getting it to the whole world. I mean, that's something I've been fighting for. It's blood, sweat, and tears.
That's exciting. That's like the top tier. Tashen's awesome.
Oh my gosh, they're incredible. I mean, and I've spoken through the editor to Benedict, and he's a huge fan, Benedict Taschen, and he's really happy to do this. So that's something we're working on. We're working on comics. I can't say many details right now. Richard knows a lot about it.
I do.
And
we have someone in common. I was watching some of Sarah's other interviews, and for people that follow the channel, the person that got me like work with Iron Maiden, Megadeth, and then with this Joe Satriani job is the guy who's actually working with Sarah on the Frazetta comics, Incendium, and the company's Incendium. The brainchild behind it is Lexi Leone.
Yes, he is a brain. Yeah, he's a genius. Like he is.
He is.
We were just talking about that before the show of how he's he doesn't just say he's going to do something, he actually executes. And there are few people that actually execute. I mean, we can all sit there and dream, but it's like, do you do the work? And that's what separates, you know, people from just having talent to having greatness. So that's So yeah, we have a lot of new merchandise we're designing in house, and we're gonna have like a full shop by August. We're releasing some skate decks, like for decorative wall. You know, like Richard, we're gonna have to send you a skate deck set, because that would look really cool in your space. Kelsey, so you let me know too.
Yes, please. One of everything.
Okay. So yeah, so we're expanding as quickly as we can. You know, I was just saying before live that I think because some people think I'm the daughter, that I'm selling original art and then putting it to the company, and that's not true. I don't own original art, besides a few that I've actually purchased back recently because of all of your support with Frazetta Girls, and that's like such a passion of mine to collect it back. But we really have been putting everything we're making back into the company, like where I've sacrificed furniture and because I'm like, it doesn't matter. We need to grow Frazetta Girls, and this is what we live and breathe, and we're dedicated to it, and we want to make the fans happy. It's when people get like the light up keychains. I have one right here, and they're like, oh my God, the eyes are glowing. Like that just makes me so happy. It's like,
wait,
you know,
what? Let's see it.
Hold on, get it out of the box. This one's the black one. This is the black one, so now I can't really see the black one. But the eyes red light. Are these eyes light? This one's having a malfunction.
You can use this to help put your keys in the door.
Yeah. I'll get the one of the gold ones later. But you know, we're learning. Nice. I mean, we're doing all the product design ourselves, and we're learning. Like the button wasn't in the right spot, and like we know we're trying to. We learn from our mistakes, and we're trying to get better to make you guys happy. So feedback is always appreciated.
Well, Sarah, actually, you can, like, when people share Frazetta images that she hasn't seen, she gets excited. I've seen it online where you see something and you're like, whoa, I don't know that one.
Yeah, I actually, Frank Cho sent me, he was in Urban Barbarian's house today. I can't remember his name, but that's his Twitter name. Thank you. And Dan had a few original pieces that I've never seen before. Wow. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like Christmas.
It's exciting.
He did a lot of work over the years. So it's, of course, I'm going to keep seeing pieces that I've never seen before.
I'm still seeing them. It's amazing how prolific the guy was.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I've noticed over the last like 5 years, more stuff that I haven't seen before popping up, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So my first introduction to Frank's work was kind of a weird thing, but it was a huge stroke of luck. I was at Comic-Con in 1995, and I actually saw your grandfather there, but I wasn't a fan yet. But I saw him there, and I went, "That's that really famous guy. I know who that guy is." So, but a year or two later, I actually sat next to Lance Laspina in Artist Alley, and all weekend long, I watched people come up to him and go crazy talking about your grandfather. They were buying Painting with Fire from him. He's the director of Painting with Fire, director and producer. And by the end of the weekend, I was sold. I was like, I'm buying the DVD, and it was like, man, I was all in.
Oh, that's really that's a story I haven't heard before. It's usually like the book covers, but it's interesting. You got into it later.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd seen a little bit of this stuff as a kid growing up, but what's funny is a friend of mine had the Ken Kelly Kiss puzzles, and then also the Frazetta puzzle that's the piece behind you, actually. Snow Giants, Frost Giants.
Yep. Snow Giants. Conan of Cimmeria, the cover. And then it was later called Snow Giants or Frost Giants.
Right. So I have all those puzzles in my garage now. He gave them to me.
Oh, so cool. Yeah, that kind of like segues into the Ken Kelly connection. That Ken Kelly is my grandma's cousin.
That's so crazy.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
That's
my grandma had ability with art. She just I think she felt intimidated by my grandfather's greatness and didn't want just didn't want to compete. I mean, it was a lot of ego in the family.
Yeah.
You know, so she had an ability, but Ken Kelly's like super talented, and my grandpa and him got along for the most part. And yeah, the Kiss album cover, the management company came to Frazetta and Ellie, and I think they were going to pay them like $5,000 or something, whatever the rate was at the time. But my grandpa wanted to retain the rights to it, and he wanted triple the amount. And I say that my grandpa, but it was probably my grandma saying that.
Right.
And you know, at this point, he could be picky and choosy of like what he was doing
Sure.
because he was so established. But then they went to Ken Kelly, and he did the album, and you know, it was the way it was supposed to be. And I think he helped him on a couple of his covers. Like he helped. I can't recall which cover it was, but I think it was a creepy cover, and he would just give him some tips from time to time.
I had read or heard an interview not that long ago, and what's funny is I've been a fan now for about 20 years, maybe a little bit longer, but I've been cobbling together the story based on, you know, you get a little piece of information from an interview or Painting with Fire, kind of put it all together. But your grandfather said it was either a written interview or an audio interview I heard. He said that Ken would actually come over a lot at night. Like he said he would come over every night and watch me paint and work. And I was like, that's interesting. So when you grew up, did you all grow up in Pennsylvania or in Florida, or where? Like, what was the proximity to your home and where Frank and Ellie lived?
Well, I was born in East Stroudsburg.
Okay.
I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I moved to Florida, which was their second home in like 1994. Okay. But I would go back to Pennsylvania every summer, and even through I think it was like, gosh, memories start getting muddy as you get older. I'm like, I'm feeling it. But we'd still go back to Pennsylvania for half of the year up until I was in 4th grade. So I spent a lot of my, like, you know, my subconscious years with him, my building block years. Yeah. But our house was like right across the field. Like, I mean, we all lived on this like 60-acre estate, which is kind of weird.
I got to think of Frazetta compound.
Yeah, it's strange. Grandma liked to have control. Let's put it that way. Right. The only one that moved off was actually my Uncle Billy. He was like, I'm not staying on the estate. I'm going down the road. Have fun, guys. So, so yeah, he was right across the field. I actually have a painting where I think the glare is going to be a little too much, but we'll try it anyway. So this is Grandpa. Yeah, Grandpa painted this for me, and there I am going across the field to his house.
I love his watercolors. Those are like my favorites. His watercolor stuff.
Okay, Sarah, we got to talk about the Mickey Mouse or Disneyland watercolor set. I've been dying to ask this question forever. Either he had the most gigantic single watercolor set, or did he buy dozens of them? I can never figure this out because he did so many pieces with the Mickey Mouse watercolors.
I guess they were the grandkids. Like my grandma was buying them for us, and he was using them. Yeah, well, he was notoriously cheap with his art supplies.
My man.
Yeah, I mean, with the masonite out of the basement, and like you know, these repainting that he seriously repainted paintings because he didn't want to get new materials.
Right.
And I'm like, what? But understanding him, he came from a very poor family, a very humble beginning. He was born in 1928 in Brooklyn. So every dollar to him was like precious. And he held on to that mindset until the day he died. I mean, people think, oh, well, he didn't get to enjoy the wealth. No, he did actually. Conan the Destroyer sold for $1 million right before he passed away. Right. And he would have never been able to spend $1 million like ever. But he was really proud of that because he knew the value of his artwork, and he knew that the pieces he held on to throughout his career would break records. So like even like Egyptian Queen, when it was my mother's, and when it broke that record, you know, my grandpa would have been so excited about that. If anything, he'd want it to go for more. Say, I want 10 million.
I think so, that piece went for 5.4. Is that correct?
5.4. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So broke a record.
So Oh my God, I have so many questions, Sarah. Okay, so the Frank getting his originals back. We'll get into actually the image that I think was the pinnacle of why he did it. But there's a specific Tarzan piece that he did that he really regretted that he didn't get back when he was working for, I don't know if it was Lancer, but I have the piece, and it is one original that he didn't get back. But do you know, were comic book artists getting their originals back at that point, or did Frank literally change it for almost everyone?
I can't say if anyone else didn't do it. I don't know, but I do know that he was very vocal about it, and that obviously changes how things happen in the course of history. So he was one of the points, the turning points, was his weird fantasy cover, number 29. Okay. And that was supposed to be a Buck Rogers cover, and then it was picked up by EC. And he didn't, Bill Gaines, told Bill Gaines, he was like, I'm not going to part with this piece. And that Bill was like, really? Like, because that was very standard. Yeah. So he instead negotiated with Frank, and he said, okay, fine. He goes, I'll cut your pay in half and you can keep the original. And he did, and he kept that original until the day he passed away, and cherished it. But yeah, he was, a lot of speculation is that my grandma was the one to push that, but it was my grandpa. He did that before they got married. Yeah. And then she of course, when he would get a little bit soft and want to gift people things, she's like, no, you can't do that. Because in his defense, like he would be gifting pieces to people, that fans that thought that they were going to go home and cherish them, and then the next day he'd see it listed for $5,000 and like Russ Cochran's auction or something, and he'd be like, really? So yeah. he didn't want everyone to like capitalize off of him.
I have a few pieces that are assigned to people when we look at the art together, and yeah, it is one of those things where you're like, why did they sell this? Like, I have art that people gave me 22 years ago. I would not feel comfortable selling it. It's like, it was a gift.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. I wrote down just some generic questions for you. So your great grandma was in the Frazetta Painting with Fire documentary, and that shocked everyone. Even if you watch the audio commentary of the directors, like, everybody was like, "Wow, great grandma was still alive." How long did she live? How old did she get to?
I believe grandma was 94 when she passed away, and she passed away from old age. But I met my great grandma a few times, and I mean, she was adorable. She was a little old Italian woman just cooking in her like little, like, what is it called? Like the big dresses, you know what I mean? Like, they're just
like a grandma,
like a nightgown.
It's sort of a dress.
Like, are you wearing a nightgown all day, grandma?
That's right.
But yeah, she was just making sauce and just wanted to keep the family fed. I mean, that was her whole mission. And then his father was a jeweler. So they, but it's funny. His sisters are all, I mean, his sister Carol, she was an incredible chef, and she just wrote her first book, Kitchen Bitch, and it's really good. It's on Amazon. It's really good. It's just because I really like it because it shares the family photos from when they were children together, and it's the family recipes. I mean, that's what Frank grew up eating, so that's pretty cool. Man, that's so cool. Yeah. And then his sister Jean is a great artist, and Adele was. They're all beautiful, but Adele was like especially beautiful. His sister.
Adele is the one that I'm going to guess looks like you. She's got brunette.
Thank you.
But she's a brunette, right? She looks more like Frank.
She's brunette with like the very like sharp eyebrows and like just gorgeous. And he actually drew her for most of the 40s and 50s. Like that was his inspiration.
Wow,
was Adele.
Cool. Jeannie is a real good artist too, by the way. Her paintings are very nice. So are Frank's sisters? So you have 3 sisters and no brothers. Is that accurate?
Right. Yep. Frank is the only boy.
Are his sisters still alive?
They are. Yep.
Wow.
Adele just suffered. It's really sad. Her son John Annunziata. He's taking care of her right now, but she just had a major stroke. So it's and she has all the thyroid issues. So, Grandpa speculated a couple times that it might have been because of his turpentine and the exposure to it long term. But now we're seeing like more and more of the family is developing thyroid diseases. and
Right.
we think it's genetic. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. Everyone has their thing in their family, though.
So Dan Fraga popped in, and I know that Fraga, you did an interview. I watched it. I watched it yesterday. I have to be honest. You and I both got very choked up when we watched the video of your grandfather at that Comic-Con. I'd never seen that before, and it was so exciting.
Oh my gosh, it was really incredible to see him like that. I mean, like I knew my grandfather post-stroke. So he was really struggling. I mean, we had a few good years together. And I actually remember from when I was like 3 years old, when he still had like the ability to go on long walks and educate me and just share with me like all of the magic that made Frank. But then, you know, his health just kept declining. I think he had like 9 strokes throughout from 95 to 2010 when he finally passed away, and he was just over it. I mean, he was just suffering. He's like, all my friends are dead. He's like, I just don't want to be here anymore. I want to be gone. And then when the family started fighting, that's when he was like, check out. I'm done. But that video really made me emotional because I never get to see him like that, and there are very few videos.
It was so cool.
Yeah, it was. And, you know, that interview, I actually had really horrible bronchitis. So I wasn't able to laugh. And I told Billy Tucci, I said, don't make me laugh. And him and Dan were making me laugh. So I'm like, but I couldn't like make a noise or I'd start like hacking. It was, but I muscled through it.
Is this one of those interview videos that Fraga was doing way back in the day?
No, it was footage that Billy Tucci's family had shot at a convention in around 1996, I believe.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
They're asking in the chat, is this on the interview with Billy did?
It's
okay, yeah, you can see it there.
I'm trying to think of the name of it's like Excitement PGX, or do you remember the name of the YouTube channel, Sarah?
I should know it.
One more time.
XP Pop, I think it's XP Pop. It's Niall and Billy Tucci.
Yeah, it was Pop XP. It was really good.
Pop XP. Thank you.
I watched that. I watched the interview that you did with the writer. That his girlfriend or wife was an artist. I watched like 3 interviews with you yesterday.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it was fun.
Well, I can't watch my interviews. I know.
Like, you said that.
I just can't. I'm like,
no, fire and forget.
Yeah, especially from like 2016. I was like. So I'm happy some traumatic things have happened to me to make me grow that much quicker.
Go ahead, Kelsey.
Huh?
I thought you were about to say something. Go ahead.
No, I'm writing down questions from the chat.
so Sarah, you actually, I really appreciated the fact that you know how important Roy Krinkle is to Frank's career, beyond the fact that he gave him work overflow. But I think that there's a deeper thing that Roy provided Frank that I don't know if fans necessarily understand. Do you want to talk about Roy and maybe his importance?
Roy is the building block of creating who Frazetta became. I mean, Frazetta drew for Roy. I mean, he said in multiple interviews that was like his inspiration, and Roy pushed him. Like Roy was honest with him. He was very critical. He really is the one who pushed him into oil painting. I mean, he was feeling very comfortable from comics doing his pen and ink, and Roy was like, you're getting in here and you're doing these Tarzan covers with me. I'm completely like overloaded with work. Get in here. And my grandpa would admit that he was at times lazy. So if Roy didn't really push him, I mean, those ace covers never would have been made. The Lancer covers never would have been made. And I mean, Roy and him, they stayed friends until the end, until Roy passed away. My grandpa got a kick out of him because he just said he was so like eccentric and like just odd, and they would go back and forth at each other with their girls, their figures, and Roy loved like very like voluptuous girls, and
right.
So Roy, I guess, would, you know, he'd make comments that my grandpas were like stick figures, and my grandpa's like, they're not stick figures, Roy. He's like your girls are too beefy, and like they would have these arguments. And then at like one point in their career, they didn't even realize it, but Roy started doing like drawing girls that were a little bit thinner, and then Frazetta kept getting thicker.
Right.
And then Roy was like, now you're drawing crinkle girls and I'm drawing Frazetta girls. So it was really like a beautiful connection. I mean, I've heard that my mom told me that Roy would babysit them, and she just said they were like, he was just so like odd but like interesting.
Yeah.
And I think my grandpa, what he really liked in Roy was like Roy was Roy. And my grandpa appreciated that with everyone. Like you had to be yourself and not, you know, he had the BS detector. Like if he knew that you had like this persona, he didn't like you instantly. And he wasn't a judgmental person. It was just, he was judgmental if you were being insincere. Yeah. So that was why I think that it really bonded them. But I mean, they collaborated together back in like in the 40s. They'd go and they'd take pictures together for references and just do the panels together. So Al Williamson, they were, you know, the Flegel gang. Sure. We have actually a big blog on our website about the Flegel gang. Steven Ringenberg helped write that because he dives into this and knows everything. He's like a Frazetta historian. He knows everything. But it's really interesting, just like how they met Nick Meglin, even Wally Wood, and how they helped each other, and they were a support system. And you know, I'm kind of like a beginner in art, and now like going around other artists and talking to artists, it's like it's so important. Like you can't do it on your own. You do need to have like a community and people to talk to that understand it and then help you grow, and also have people that are honest with you and say this sucks or this is great. And it's just really, it's important. So yeah, Roy and Frazetta with peanut butter and jelly.
I got the impression that Roy really turned Frank on to fine art. Like I think I always got the impression that Roy probably had like this amazing collection of books and things that inspired him, and he would really share that with Frank, where Frank might not have gone the direction for multiple reasons, but I really do feel that like Frank would or that Roy would maybe go like, hey Frank, take this book home and you should check this guy's stuff out.
You're so right. He did do that. Roy was I guess he had books everywhere in his house, just like
I didn't know that. I was just guessing.
Yeah, no, he was like I don't want to call him a hoarder. He was a collector, and he was a true artist. And so he had things laying everywhere, and he'd call Grandpa, he'd come over, Joseph Clement Cole, like he would really push them into my grandfather's face because he wasn't really an avid reader or
so was he like just a kind of one of those natural talents, and people were like, you need to look at this, you need to look at this, and he's, you know,
he didn't.
Okay, this is good.
Exactly. Even his early education, it was the Brooklyn Academy of Fine Arts. It wasn't like a real academy. It was a hole in the wall in Brooklyn with Michel Falange. He was from Italy, and he was teaching students from like 8 years old to 80 years old. And when Grandpa said it was very like, you know, open. They did some life drawing, some still life in the beginning, but it wasn't like a rigid school where they had like these assignments. So that was really, he didn't really have fine art training. So it was the people like Roy Krinkle that would bring him things and say, you've got this talent, you need to do this, you can do it. And that's one of the things about my grandpa is like, he was sort of an enigma. You know, he came off like I did it my way and like the strong macho guy, but he also had that side of him that was very sensitive, and he was a people pleaser. So he did, like I said earlier, he drew for Roy, he drew for his friends, and it's just he was, you know, Frank was a sports guy. Like Frank would be, if you went to visit him, he had baseball on and hockey, and he was talking about his cameras. And even in a recent interview, I think it was Steve Ringenberg, he said that he went to his studio and he had the Wild Ride, the girl on the horse in California, and it was a work in progress. And he pointed to that painting, and he goes, "See that over there?" And he goes, and Steve goes, "Yeah, I see it, Frank." And he goes, "That's not Frazetta." And then he points over to his guns. That's Frazetta. So, you know, he's macho, like, but you know that, but he did have that sweetness in him. And that's really what came out in his later life after the strokes. He kind of like circled back to that like sweet little Frank that was always in there.
It's interesting. It's, you know, he talked in the Painting with Fire that, you know, he would get picked on. How tall was your grandfather?
He was 5'11".
Okay, so he's not a small guy, especially back then. That would actually be considered kind of tall for his generation, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And he was naturally built. I mean, he wasn't
I,
into like bodybuilding or anything like that, but he was I mean, what I've seen him do, like he was almost like a gymnast. Like he was incredible, and just like this natural like athletic ability. I mean, like yeah, and like even his paintings, like the reason I love them so much is it's like that I have such a personal connection to him, but I see Frank in every painting because it's just like most of the poses are Frank. Like his first love was photography, and that really he was an avid camera collector, and I mean, if someone came with a camera, you're gonna talk about that camera. You're not gonna talk about art. It's just not gonna happen.
That's fascinating. So did he do a lot of reference photography, or is it just for fun,
He said he didn't, but this was kind of like a myth put into the art community later in life. And obviously he had a little bit of dementia going on, and with these like historians were telling Frank what he did and didn't do, he was like, oh yeah, and agreeing to it.
Yeah, print the legend.
Yeah, exactly. But no, he definitely used reference photography, but it was his photography.
Yeah.
And that was what he was really big on. It's like, people can sit there and criticize his work and say, oh, this isn't right, this arm isn't right. And he was like, oh my God, he gets so annoyed because he's like, that's not the point of art. The point of art is to put in emotion and to put in your interpretation of reality. I'm not trying to look at a photograph and then copy it exactly. I'm just getting like an overall feel, and then I put my emotions onto that. So, I mean, he didn't really have like a deep message even in his art. So many people try to like interpret this and say, I mean, I've seen crazy blogs, and I'm like, no, that is no. And recently I always knew that inherently, that Grandpa wasn't like trying to like put out this like a pretentious, like he wasn't a pretentious man, and he wasn't trying to like really put this like deep message. He was trying to just show people beauty and just, himself. And in a recent interview, he said that, and I read it and I was like, I knew it. He said it's an emotional response to the subject that he's painting, period. Yeah. So it's nothing more. Sure, and that's okay. That's the beauty in life. It's like things can be simple. And like, even as me, like trying to understand art, it's like I'm always searching for like a deeper feeling, a deeper meaning. And it's like sometimes being simple is okay. And just being true to yourself, that's okay. You don't have to intellectualize everything.
A lot of times too, what I find is like, if I do a piece, I actually like can kind of reverse engineer it later, where you kind of look at it and you can go, oh, I can sort of patch together a little story of maybe what I was thinking or what was kind of going on. And it can make it kind of fun for you. So we should talk about that. You actually are interested in drawing and have been drawing now for about 3 years.
Since 2017. Yeah. But last year I started getting serious about it. Now I draw every day. So good. Now I'm going really through the mud. I have not wanted to do this, and I've done a lot of like homages to my grandpa because I'm learning. Sure. I do not plan to continue to just do tributes of Frazetta because I want to be Sara. But even my grandpa, Milton Caniff. Yeah, Caniff, thank you. And Jack Kirby, he emulated both of them for years, he said, because that's how he was learning. And we shouldn't discourage.
A lot of us do that. I mean, I emulated all kinds. I still do, actually.
Well, and that's okay too. It's like, as long as you put like a little bit of like your own pizzazz in it, like, and you that's fine. Like that's nothing. I look at it this way. We're all copying from nature. We're copying from God, like our surroundings. None of us can take credit. I mean, we're like in a collective consciousness. We're downloading ideas. And then if someone, and Grandpa was at a different time, I think, now in 2021, you can look at it and say, none of us can really like own an idea. Like you can't. It's collective. No, it's like if you tell me something that resonates with me and then I go tell someone else, but I don't give you credit for what you said that resonated with me, that's not a bad thing if I'm passing it to another person. It's all about intention.
I see it online all the time. I'll see someone post something on Twitter and I'll go, they must have watched my YouTube video. There's no way I pulled some weird reference out or I said something and then look, it could just be in the air that like I responded to something that I saw and they maybe saw that thing, and then we both kind of like had, oh, that connects with this.
Exactly.
But look, you're part of an artistic community now, and we all love you, honestly.
Aww.
Like it's really true though. You're making a lot of friends with people, and it's exciting to have you as part of like our group, as a group of artists. So it's like we admire your family, we admire your grandfather, but you know, I know you said that you're close with Bill Sinkevich, and Bill said that one encouraging thing he had said to you was that he saw something special in your work. I see it too. If you work hard on your art, you could definitely do your own great work. You know,
that means so much to me. Thank you. And I recently had a 2-hour conversation with Bill like last week, and I was like floating on a cloud. Like I was like, oh my God, like, you know, Bill, like, I mean, because Bill, like we met back in 2014, and I saw Bill's work and I was like, it just like lit me up inside. And then when I met Bill, I was like, Bill's like an angel, like a real angel. Like he's like a spiritual, like just deep, like beautiful, like the way he speaks, it's like in poems. And like you just listen and you're like, I could just talk to you every day, all day.
He lives and breathes art for sure.
Yeah, he really does. But he was the one that I didn't get to my point before. He was the one that's pushing me, and he goes, Sarah, he goes, are you sketching from real life? And I'm like, no. And he goes, I need you to go out. And you know what? And he didn't even say, I need you to. He didn't push like that. He was just saying it in such a beautiful, poetic way that like, and like telling me like how he perceived me. And I was like, this is so beautiful. And it wasn't like, you have to do this. Because if someone tells me I have to do something, I'm like, nope, I'm going to do the opposite way. And like, I have a little bit of my grandpa
totally
in me.
Like that too.
Yeah, you know, we're a little stubborn. So
that's popular. I'm going this way.
Yeah, I'm going to be different, and I'm learning my own way. But with the way he said it was like so unbelievable and inspiring that the next day I went to like the little garden center in Sarasota, and I just was sitting there drawing. It looked like crap. It just looks so bad though. But I know the point. I'm like, I don't want to be crap, but you have to be to get great.
Sure. Well, just stick to it. And
Thank you.
The Black Flag comic book company, not related to Dan Frega's Black Flag.
Right.
Just
Yep.
Get confused here. What the, I don't know if it was an editor or the owner of the company said to you really is true. It's like Lexi put me in the hot seat. He believed in me enough to stick me on a comic book where probably I don't think DC or Marvel would have hired me based on my experience. But Lexi can see the diamond in the rough, you know, and
Absolutely.
it's like you're going to get better if you just get destroyed trying stuff, you know?
Well, that's like, you have to be fearful. Fear is opportunity. If you're scared of it, do it. And that's like what I've been doing now for the past year is like, if someone asks me to do something, I'm going to, like, of course there's boundaries, but of course I'm going to say yes. And I'm hugely uncomfortable sitting next to Clayton Crane and watching him do these remarks. And I'm just like, but it's super, it's humbling. And it's like, put you in that mind of like, okay, this is a goal. Like, and, you know, even Clayton, he was sharing with me, he's like, when people say I'm talented, he's like, I just work really hard. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible, Clayton. He's so humble. He's neutral.
What'll get you growing faster is if you look at Clayton's work and go, not bad. And then, you know, and you think to yourself, I'm going to beat Clayton Crane in 3 years. I'm going to beat Clayton Crane.
Where it's like destroy all competition.
Yeah, I have a little bit of that with like the business side, but I think I'll get that with the art. Like with the business, I'm like, you know, what can we do next?
Frank would have been so interesting to know when he was younger, before everything had progressed. But man, to know him between the ages of maybe like 18 and 28, God, it would have been incredible to just like hang with that guy.
Oh my God. He was just like incredible. Like, I mean, he is my hero. He really is.
He's so handsome. He's so talented.
Yeah, he's so handsome. He had a freaking amazing voice. He could have been an actor. Like he would have been great actor.
When you see pictures of him with actors, you go, Frank looks more like the actor.
Right, next to Clint Eastwood. It's funny.
Right.
They look like brothers.
They do.
But yeah, but you know, I was reading this interview and it was about his time filming Fire and Ice with Ralph.
Right.
And he said that, I mean, some of the stunt doubles, like he was teaching the stuntmen how to do certain moves and teach them how to like walk like a cat. And he even said that he actually walked like a Frazetta girl because the women couldn't even do it because they were just feeling like uncomfortable. And he's like, I got up there and I wiggled it and just like, you know, showed him how it's done. And like, I mean, he was just, he like lived and breathed what he was painting. Like that was Frank. He was masculine and just, I mean, everyone, women and men alike, we all love him. We're like, wow, we want to be Frank.
I know, totally. So there was a question in the comment section that I wanted to get to just before we forget. So you like the question was essentially like, are you part of the East Stroudsburg Frazetta Museum? So do you want to talk about that? What I do want to look at art with you. So
I'll make it brief. I'll keep it brief.
So no worries. I wasn't trying to rush you, but I wanted to make sure that you wanted to hang out and look at art for a bit.
Oh, for sure. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, cool. This is going to be really fun.
I can't wait.
We're going to look at art with Sara Frazetta and talk about Frank's work. It's going to be insane.
I'm curious. Really I'm curious actually what it is you think maybe his enduring sort of interest is. Like, what is it that people, there's something about it. Like, what do you think of, what is it to you that, you know, do you think it is this thing that he has, his art seems to capture people's imaginations in ways that others don't, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that Grandpa was, do you want me to talk about that now? Or are we waiting for that?
Just as we're seeing, like, I don't know. I'm curious what your perspective is on his stuff. Yeah.
I think like the more I understand it from like you know, a trained, like an intellectual, like, understanding of his art, it makes more sense. Like, I mean, his ability to make shapes, like his that was like a huge focus of like making something, kind of like conducting music. He would want to guide your eye. So, you know, he'd always start with the foreground and the main character. And then he would add the elements that were interesting to him. So it was really by intuition of what he felt was exciting and what could tell the story. And going back to him being a photographer, it was like capturing that action, capturing that moment. So all of his art, it was like, you know, and he wouldn't like when people copied like his exact actions, because he was like, you know, there's endless movements. Like, don't taking mine, find your own movements. Easy for him to say, because he was crawling around like a cat and then like taking self-timed pictures or whatever he was doing back then, or having like, but he was I think that, like, again, he was just putting himself, he was such a cool person. And then you see that coolness on the canvas where you're like, damn, this person really was like genuine. He was really Frank. He wasn't anyone else. And of course, early inspiration and there were a few swipes that he said there were never swipes. There were a few. So even Frank was guilty of swipes. Not guilty, but he did it.
Sometimes your job's got to get in.
Yeah.
I can't figure this out. I need something.
Exactly. I mean, even like his painting the Galleon, like it was Howard Pyle, and so he was inspired by that. And he played it off saying, oh, well, you know, I'd seen it before, so maybe it was like in my subconscious. But
and that is possible, honestly. But
it is possible. Exactly. I don't know, and that could be completely true. But yeah, I think it was just like his innate understanding of shapes and design. I mean, even he did the architecture, like the drawing for his house, like in Pennsylvania, and he was just, you could see like his shapes were just incredible. And then the color palettes he used, he wanted to be different. So like instead of doing like a pink, like reddish tone, he would do greens and blues, and his humans became, you know, this like mystical creation that he created. He didn't, and that's what bothers me when people say, oh, with like the brain, for instance, when it wasn't like correct, like I guess like what his hands going over his head would have hit the horns. Grandpa was like, that's the point. Like, that's the point of it, is to be like, wow, like, what is this story? How could maybe like the horns disappear and then it comes down? Like, it's fantasy. It's not supposed to be this is a photograph, this is the exacts. And even as women, like they were exaggerated, but it was his Frazetta girl. So that was his outlook on art. And that's why I think everyone loves it, because it was just, it's real.
Yeah. So
really
talk about museums real quick, and then let's start looking at art.
So the museum, okay, so my grandma passed away in 2009. And
was that unexpected? Because I really was shocked that your grandma passed away before Frank, because Frank's health had been so bad. And when she passed away, I was like, holy cow,
she was really mad that she was passing away first. Like, I'll be totally honest.
Right.
She was pissed. And she was really, oh God, it was sad. Like, she had the worst lung cancer, and it was spreading everywhere. But she smoked a lot of cigarettes, a lot. I mean,
she was a health nut, though, you said. But besides,
no, she just didn't eat. She drank a little bit, and stress. She was so freaking stressed out, and stress will kill us all for anything. Like, I don't care. You could be the happiest person and smoke cigarettes, and you'll probably live longer than someone who's stressed out eating healthy. But yeah, no, she shamed us. She body shamed us for sure. That was grandma. Good thing she didn't see me in part of my 20s. I would have been like, I hate you.
Right. Yeah.
But no, she was very upset that she was going through that. And I think she was in disbelief too, that she was leaving before Frank, because of they had a bad relationship at the end, and it was just very strong opinions. And my grandpa was, it's been told that he was the most loyal husband. That's not very true. And if you can see Frank's art and you understand it, like he was a very sexual person, and you get that impression. So it's like, it doesn't really fit the narrative. Like, people think, oh, well, he's this like family loyal man, and like, all about Ellie, but like, he's drawing these women all the time. That's a little weird. Right. That doesn't really go. He was a great family man after his strokes. He was a different person before that. So my grandma and him, they had a lot of tension. My grandpa wasn't allowed in his museum at the end. Like, I mean, it was just, my grandma she did some questionable things in business. I love her. I respect her, because she was kind of thrown into that fire. She didn't know what she was doing, and she was just doing her best. She's an Irish strong woman with, so, but yeah, they had a lot of tension. And when she passed away, here's a truth bomb. She didn't leave a will. She didn't leave a will. She looked at her kids and she said, good luck. And whoo,
that's like a hand grenade.
That's old school. That's old school East Coast.
Yeah.
Like, and that's just who she was. She was mad. Like, I mean, it was sad. Like, my grandma, seeing her like that, she was just, it was horrible. It was heartbreaking. And my grandpa had never paid a bill in his life. He was, just doing art and living life and playing sports. So then he was responsible for writing this will and splitting this estate. And then my grandpa was like and it's almost like a tragic poem at the end. Like, then he experienced what Ellie felt all those years. And I think that like really touched him at the end, where he was just like heartbroken. He was like, oh my God, this is too much. Yeah. But basically what happened was, Frank Jr. didn't want to work with the other siblings, and then legal battles went on.
Along as kids, because I'm an only child, so like the only close with my wife and her brother, and like, you know what I mean. They're pleasant with each other, but if they had to do business together, it would be like. It
creates a whole nother dynamic, and until you go through it, you don't really know. But no, they had a good childhood together. I mean, that was the saddest part of it, honestly. And what broke my heart was because we were like a tight knit family. We're Sicilian. We all lived on this compound. I mean, we did summers together.
Frazetta compound.
Our cult. So yeah, it was really heartbreaking to see.
There were guns.
There were a lot of guns, scary things. We're like, you look back in retrospect and you're like, But so I understand it from like an outsider perspective, but I also experienced it, and to see like the family divide over assets, it was really heartbreaking. So my grandpa eventually he settled it, and he wanted all the kids to be in the business, and he was like, this is how it's going to be. My grandma was different. She chose her, her favorites and who was going to work in the business, but
Right.
they all really respected my grandfather. And Billy had his own business, his costume shop that he had been building since 1980. My mom had a little boutique in Boca Grande, and they all had their own lives, but at the end, I think they felt so invested, and they're like, I want to do something with this legacy. Like I want to carry this on. It's huge. It's enormous. So I'll wrap this up. It's a very long story, but
look, this is all interesting. The people that are Frazetta fans, it's very cool.
Yeah, and there's been so many like nasty things said, but it's like, whatever. Like I understand everyone has their own perception and opinion.
You're pretty humble, because as far as I understand, you actually really kind of were able to get the family together to come to some agreements because it wasn't going well, right?
It was, the lawyers were taking everything. I mean, and they really were like, it was like, even in parts, like my mom would tell me that, and this was before I entered the scene, but there were parts like of times when even like Frank Jr. wanted to work with them, and then the lawyers would just do something, and then it would divide them again. And I blame the legal teams that were handling that. They were vicious, and they knew there was a lot of money to be made, and it was very sad. And not to digress, but man, do we need some changes in the legal system for these thieves. And there are great lawyers. Like I have friends of lawyers. We have lawyers, but it's you have to be careful. Hi. But so I came in when they decided, the siblings decided, they're like, you know what, we can't work together. We don't agree on anything. We don't have the same vision. We don't, my Uncle Billy, my Aunt Heidi, my mom wanted to work with Robert Rodriguez and do the live action Fire and Ice. Robert Rodriguez was touring the art, and Robert Rodriguez, I have to give him so much credit because he was like the foundation of Frazetta Girls. Like when I went and saw what he was doing with the exhibit and the limited edition Jacquets and like the full sublimation t-shirts that we still do to this day, that was Robert Rodriguez. And he had this like vision. Like Robert Rodriguez was like obsessed with Frazetta. He was like, I love Frazetta. And he was he wasn't making money off of this. He was doing this out of like pure passion. He was actually giving the money back to the family, and like a really, really good heart. I mean, good-hearted person. But so yeah, they didn't see eye to eye. And then in the settlement, Frank Jr. was received the estate in Pennsylvania. My mom and Heidi received the Boca Grande building, which was the second museum location, and then Billy was he inherited the downtown building, which was the first museum location. Right. So that's kind of special. They all got like a piece of their family. But I came in when they were like, you know what, we're dividing all the art. We're gonna start our own businesses. And I'm like, guys, please don't do this. Like, we need to keep it all together. This looks weird. Like I just got out of college. I was working as a post-production coordinator. I never thought that I was going to go into the Frazetta business. I knew my grandpa as grandpa and grandma as grandma, and they kept it very like separate from us, and that was fine. But it was like when I started getting invested in it, I was like, okay, I have to do something. Like something was like, it was like a higher power telling me like, nope, leave your job, leave your business. I was building a concierge business, and I moved from Tampa back to Boca Grande, and I started going to conventions with my mom, and we built Frazetta Girls. But yeah, I separated the core collection of the artwork, and I mean, it was just wild. Like, I'm like, who gets Death Dealer 1?
Well, yeah, like well, let's talk about that for a second. So, would like each kid, sibling, or one of Frank's children would like your mom go, well, these are my top picks. Like if I I would like Death Dealer is interesting to me, Cat Girl, or whatever. Did each person have a list, and then you kind of would go like, okay, so if you got Cat Girl, are you okay with them getting Death Dealer, and then Conan 1 would go to you? Was it that kind of thing when you just had to work?
That's exactly what it was. It was like, it was really sentimental value, and then of course like actual value. Yeah, it was like what is the appraised value, and then what is the value from your sentimental like value, because I mean his kids really grew up with the art. Like, I mean, it was just all over the house, and they did have their favorites. And like my mom got the portrait, Frank's portrait. And my yeah, and you know, my mom was just always like, my mom didn't have a very good connection with her mother, but she was very close to my grandfather. Like they just really understood each other. So that was like she was like, I want that piece. Like I have to have his portrait. And then of course we came down to some that, you know, it was just a kind of like more of like a, what's the value of this? How is it fair? But it wasn't really listed. I'd call them. I'd be like, I was on the phone for like, I think like 2 months, seriously, 2 months. And I was so stressed out because I didn't like the fighting either. And then I'd be in the middle and I'm like, oh my God, like, okay, well, he changed his mind. So,
he wants the Atlantean. Can you do,
so I'm like, okay.
Oh my God. So you did all the key paintings. I mean, did you have to separate them into like categories where you went like, okay, these like 25 pieces are the keys, and then we've got the B. Now, so how much like pen and ink stuff was because in the Frazetta Painting with Fire, I would love to actually interview Lance or one of the guys that worked on the movie because they must have a lot of raw footage of the museum, because he said they went through the museum 29 times and shot it, and the footage and the video is literally like 20 seconds. But
I know
there was so much badass pen and ink work there too.
A lot of the pen and inks, so the original art was split into like 2 tiers. So they did their own split. This is when I wasn't involved and I wasn't taking record of anything. And then they did the second split, which was the core collection, and actually you're right on 25 pieces. That's really weird. I'm like, how do you know this?
I, honestly, and I'm not like a creeper fan like that at all, but that was my guess.
Yeah, no, that was the exact number. So, but yeah, they did their own inventory and divided, and really the ink work was like based on what they personally loved. But interestingly, I don't know if this is going to happen for sure, but I was talking to my Uncle Billy the other day, and he's thinking about opening a museum with his collection.
Good for him.
At the first museum location in downtown East Stroudsburg. So there would be 2 museums, and then my mom's opening hers in Boca Grande. I don't know if my aunt will be. I don't know if she'll be displaying any art, but we hope she will. We're working that out. But she's done some exhibits as well, like at the Metropolis and in New York City, and they all are really good about like there was. My heart like goes out to them in a way because it's like it was an enormous thing to take on, and not having like good guidance and good legal guidance, and you know there was a lot of snakes that came out of the woodwork in the beginning, and so they're finding kind of like an equilibrium now, and they do want the fans to see the original art. I mean, I believe all of them have that intention with wanting the fans to see the art and preserve it.
I get that sense, and it's a huge responsibility. I have a friend. I have 2 friends that I consider very, very high end art collectors, the like big collections, and it's scary when you have that much expensive art in your possession.
Did you see the gentleman who? No, actually one of the collectors in California. I don't know if you've heard about this. He had the Vampirella stolen from his house. The 1995 oil that Grandpa did.
Okay, I've seen that piece.
A snake bite. It was stolen, and snake bite, and then he had one other I can't remember, but someone like obviously was planning this for a while, and he was out of town, and all of his original art was stolen. So it's like, you know, even with the museum, like my mom's up in her Boone location now, and they're in a vault. Like you can't you can't just have. It's not like back in the 70s when my grandpa would have the art hanging over his fireplace and loaded guns everywhere in case someone came in. You know, it's
when you see just sort of like random pictures that maybe like someone that visited your grandfather or grandma at different times, it is interesting because, you know, like obviously any fan's going to look at the walls and see, but like there was a picture I saw yesterday with your grandpa, and he had Catgirl, I don't know, could have been a print, but it was Catgirl was over his desk, and then he had another one that was just sitting on sort of like I don't know what they call what they paint on. What is that called? Easel. Like there was an extra easel to the left of him that had another piece. But I have friends that when they draw, will kind of like you sort of reference your own stuff, and it reminds you, hey, okay, you're pretty good at this. In case you're having any doubts today, you know, here's some good ones you did to.
And show you you're good. Don't listen to the negative chatter. But no, those were not prints. He never had prints in his house. Those were all the originals. I mean, I think Sinkevich almost burned down. Like she was over the fireplace, and the kids were alone. And I think my grandparents were in California, and they left their kids. Like just, the 70s, it was different.
Sure.
But yeah, they were very lax with the art. I mean, my grandpa had At the Earth's Core, like sitting in the grass. And he was so, I mean, he has coffee stains on a lot of his art.
I know. That's how you know you got a good one, is like Frank spilled a little coffee on it.
Absolutely. But he was totally sloppy with it. And I mean, and the kids were too. And now to have like this responsibility of insuring them and keeping them protected, it was a lot for them. It was a lot for them to handle. But all in all, like to wrap that up, and then I just kept going with Frazetta Girls, and I haven't given up, and I have big plans for it. And, I'm honored to be doing this. And, what you said earlier is you guys embracing me as artists, and then embracing Frazetta Girls. Like, I thank you guys. I mean, I wouldn't be here without your support. I thank you.
It's incredibly important. And so we're going to talk about one more thing, and then we're going to start looking at art. So you talked about that you haven't been doing conventions, kind of, obviously with COVID, like stuff shut down.
Right.
But for you, it was very important to not go to conventions with sort of a cheap looking setup. And you were inspired by like what Alex Ross has.
Exactly.
That's 1000% what Frazetta Girls deserves and should have. And Bill Sinkevich is another one. He has a beautiful setup at Comic-Con now. So, it's something that you guys will 1000% get there and be able to have. I mean, people love Frank's work, and, something like that, you guys will crush it.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's part of learning. I mean, like I said before, I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm learning, and I'm learning from my mistakes and trying to be better. And I just, I had like Jimmy Palmiotti and Billy Tucci very honest with me, and they love Grandpa, and they were like, you got to do a little bit better. And I respected their honesty, and I was like, yeah, you're right. And so we kind of just pulled out, and right now we're working on a new website because we don't think that's good enough. We're like, this needs to be iconic, like his imagery. And even with our products, it's like, we're going to take our time on them to make them great quality, because Frazetta deserves great quality. We're not going to put out cheap t-shirts. We're not going to put out anything cheap, because it's Frazetta. And that's what he always wanted too. He wanted everything to be quality. So that has to be at conventions where we really make a statement. And again, thanks to the fans, because we will get there because of your support. I mean, I just appreciate it so much.
So there was a quick question. So, a couple of people were asking about Glenn Danzig and your grandfather. as far as I've seen, I mean, you said it in one of the interviews yesterday. If your grandpa didn't like someone, he wasn't going to hang out with them. And the fact that he worked with Glenn, to me, pretty much says it all.
He thought Glenn was like really different, and he was Glenn. He's Glenn Danzig. Like he's a one of one.
Yeah.
I think he thought he was a cool guy, and they never had any falling out or anything. He wasn't really thrilled with the way that went, because the project and those comics, because he thought it was a little bit like too violent for Frazetta.
Right. Bisley couldn't rein himself in.
Bisley, I love Bisley. I thought he's what a barbarian. He's like a true barbarian that you meet, you're like, wow, I need him as the bodyguard. But yeah, he appreciated it. I mean, I think there were some things said that hurt some artists, like after my grandpa made some remarks, but they have to understand too, he had like a little bit of dementia, and he would say some things that were just like very blunt, but not necessarily like how he really felt. It was just like how someone would tell him how he should feel about it. But I think at the time he was just yeah.
So, all right, let's start looking at some art, and I'm sure this will like. Do you need to take a break for a second? We can
just water. I'm good.
Okay. Kelsey, are you ready to look at some art with Sara Frazetta?
Let's do this.
This is going to be so much fun. So I grabbed some stuff off the Frazetta Girls site, and then I went to Heritage and grabbed a few different paintings, some pen and ink stuff, and then I also grabbed a couple of pieces that I wanted to ask you about that I kind of know that you have stories about, and I thought it would be fun. So, all right, awesome. I need to share my screen. This is going to be really cool. All right, let me see here. Window. Photoshop. All right, let's go. I know I can't see you guys, so Kelsey, you got to mind the chat. So this was off of Frazetta Girls, and this is a study or I guess the pencil drawing of one of the pieces that you guys are selling.
Yeah, that's 3000 AD, also known as Bigfoot. That was actually one of the pieces that he really didn't like.
You didn't like this piece?
He didn't really like that piece.
Right?
It's probably the top hat. I mean, I see like the composition is still spectacular. It was just it reminds me a little bit of like the Conan. I'm pointing the wrong way. Snow Giants a little bit, like the colors and the palette. Right. But I think he wasn't really happy with his beast. I don't know why.
Do you know? Is this is a pencil study and not the pencil like on canvas?
Right.
Was that, okay. So when Frank would go to do a painting, would he project like the structure of the painting onto the canvas in terms of where the placement was, or would he just he would eyeball it?
He did both. Again, that was kind of like the myth that he never did that. That's not true. He did project it from time to time. If you know what I guess depending on which piece it was. Sure. But he did a lot of rough works, and actually bringing back up Roy Krinkle. Roy actually did some concepts for him. The Dracula meets Wolfman, and oh god, it's a gargoyle piece. They were both for Erie, I believe. Okay. So, but most of them, he did about like 5 rough works for like each painting.
I love the light coming through the water there.
So this is an interesting piece. This is an early version of Wild Ride. Is that right? This is not the way it looks right now.
This is actually the revised version.
Oh, this is the revised version.
It is, and I don't like it. Like, sorry, Grandpa, but yeah, no worries. I appreciated. I think, in my opinion, she just looks a little too small for the horse. And on his first version, which I loved, the butt was like, I'm
gonna grab the other one.
Yeah, grab the other one. I mean,
we got a quick super chat from Cantonese Comic Kid, $5.
There it is.
Okay, so this is the original.
Yeah, and okay, people have said, "Oh, it's an ugly butt." I'm glad he revised it, but I like the ugly butt. I think I like this one better. She's really like embracing, like she's really riding the horse, like on that. Like, I mean, it just feels, I could see like it's beautiful with the detail with like the cellulite and the lighting.
Yeah, I agree.
It's it's a masterpiece, but unfortunately.
Do you have the other one open? It looks like the colors are different.
Yeah.
Well, so and this was the one I was going to ask you about. So you had said, I think when Jeff Lafferty interviewed you a couple of years ago, I believe the bottom on her is chipping off. Is that accurate?
The bottom of her was chipping off, but when he repainted it, it's no longer chipping off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Catgirl is chipping, and Dark Kingdom is currently chipping, and they need to be restored. So that's
so. Kelsey, sometimes with these scans, it could also be that someone tinkered with the saturation and hue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look at that. It's
that
like
happens.
way yellowish.
So
because he didn't change the backgrounds at all in the revised. It was just the girl.
Right.
Maybe the horse a little bit too.
And then there's I have a study of this one that I'll show really quick. That's pretty cool. Let me find it. This is the actual watercolor study, probably done in the Mickey Mouse watercolors.
Probably. You know, the one I showed earlier was done with the Mickey Mouse watercolors. I'm sure you saw it on Billy with my podcast with Billy. Both of our reds are completely gone. Like he had the she, and then she was red. Now she doesn't have color.
She's great. It's insane.
Yeah, and my olive oil, she doesn't have a shirt anymore. So I don't know. You know, most of his studies he sold. That's another myth that Frank and Ellie didn't sell art. Yes, they did. They sold a lot of art. But he kept his favorites. He kept the ones that he thought were going to be the most valuable, and the ones again that were most sentimental to him.
Well, and he created so much art. You know, it's not
right.
So here's a beautiful pen and ink piece. I love this. I love this era of drawings. Yep. Oh my God, they're cartoony. They're very graphic. There's just enough detail.
It's really incredible. The movement with the guy falling off. I mean, it's just until you like try to do that, you realize actually how incredibly difficult that is, to get that like peak action and to show like even like just look at the dip of his hip. I mean, you really have to like watch people and have a grasp on anatomy to be able to like contour it like that, and the shadows. I mean, it's his lighting, his intuition with lighting was incredible, and I agree with you. Like the girls, that girl doesn't have a nose, but like she doesn't need to have a nose. It just works. Like he always said it was like with his art, it was about like knowing what to leave out, and that's what separates a great from just another artist. So that look, no nose, but it's amazing.
Yeah, even her
and the
eye
nose,
one's a little darker than the other, but it doesn't matter.
No, he just I think he was a master at pen and ink. I really do. And I mentioned this name earlier, but Joseph Clement Cole, I saw his work at Norman Rockwell, and you can really see that that's where his influence was. I mean, he was incredible. So
this stuff influenced so many artists.
Yeah.
It's great to see that Frank and Roy were able to inspire so many people. Al Williamson. This is totally looks like Frank from behind.
Oh, it is. Who knows what he was hanging off of to probably get his reference.
Oh, look at this one. This is from the Frazetta Girls site, I believe.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
This is beautiful. So you guys, there's links in the description box. You definitely need to head to Frazetta Girls. If not to purchase something, to definitely look through, and you can learn more about Frank. And also there's all kinds of neat things to pick up.
This one's really interesting. Like he talks about this a lot in interviews with his loving, like he loves doing like swirls, and he'll, like I said, he'll do a figure and then kind of like stack the figures depending on like what he wants to make interesting. And just to really like look at this and really study it. I mean, his I love his animals perfectly. Personally, I think they just they just transcend you. They're, again, he didn't make them completely correct. He made them Frazetta animals. And that's like the beauty in them, like this like gator / reptile. Like it's, I mean, the snarling, he even said in Fire and Ice, like with the artist, he had to kind of step in when like, if he had to like draw a wolf that was snarling, no one could do the snarl like Frazetta. So he'd say, let me, come on kids, I'm going to teach you the snarling. But
I always tell people that the eyes on his creatures are Frank's eyes. Like, to me, it looks like the cat's eyes. It looks like Frank's eyes. They were so intense.
They're so intense. Well, just like him. You're exactly right.
Yeah, it's so cool. Man, this figure is great.
Like just even his hand pose it like that. It's just, it's in motion. It really is. Like it's incredible. He was a great storyteller.
7 says Frazanimals.
Yeah.
Frazanimals. I like that.
Oh, look at this one. So this is on Masonite.
Ooh.
He gets a lot of criticism for this one because I love most of his artwork.
Actually like it, though. I mean, I actually would put this in a higher tier than some stuff. Wow. I think it's, well, I mean, like I'm saying, like to me, there's nothing wrong with this at all. I think it's badass.
Yeah, I mean, look at the colors. I mean, it's just
abstract. He's such a good abstract painter, and it's such a underappreciated part of his work. But his ability to use shape.
Are you saying that Frank didn't like this, or his critics?
No, critics don't like this. Okay. I guess because of the perspective. I guess like the dinosaur weirds them out or something. I don't really know. I love it because I think it's so freaking empowering. When we talking a little bit about like, if Frank was a sexist, like, no, if you really know his body of artwork, look, she's pushing him back.
Yeah,
saying,
she's like, stand back. I got this. Yeah.
Put your club away. I've got this knife. I'm going to stab him in the eye. Like,
she's going to do it up close and personal.
Yeah. Watch me. Like she's making her power move. So there's as many, look, has a exposed rear end. I mean, Frazetta didn't draw pants. Like he just didn't paint pants. No one had pants. So it was like that with men and women. So
I never thought about that. That's funny. That is true.
Even his Lord of the Rings portfolio, people are like, wait, but there's no pants. And I'm like, It's Frazetta's interpretation of Lord of the Rings. What did you think?
Did Eastwood have pants on that movie poster? I'll have to go back and look at that.
they made him have pants. I guess
Oh.
if they made him, he'd draw the pants. But he liked to see what he could get away with.
So for people that don't understand the Masonite reference, so this is actually like pressed wood that he painted on. So all this bottom stuff right here is actually just like from the house, right?
Yeah, it was. They were redoing the floor in the basement, and they had leftover Masonite. So he went down and he just took the Masonite and was like, "Let's see what I can do with it."
And it's beautiful. I mean, it really creates a great texture on the painting.
It does.
I mean, it's poking through all over it. You can see it in here. Even up in the mountains, there's little pieces of it where you can really clearly see just the texture of the pressed board. It's wild.
It's almost a way of like getting around having an underpainting or whatever. He's just doing the shadows, but he's letting the color of the board do a lot of the heavy lifting. It's pretty cool. It's
true. That's in my opinion, that's genius. I mean, that's it's so raw and like that's what he didn't. He wanted to do paintings quickly because he wanted his intuition to guide him with it. He didn't want to overthink things. And I think go ahead.
Well, like look at the under calf right there. It looks like 2-3 brushstrokes tops. That's it. Establishing the lighting on that. It's beautiful.
It's incredible. And that's something I want. Like, I'm so glad you're doing this right now because like with our site that we're building now, it's really going to be about like enjoying the art and understanding it and going and being able to go and focus and zoom into these high resolutions and more of like an experience about Frazetta with like the shop being the afterthought. So
can I be a beta tester of the site?
Yes. Yes. I will send you the link as soon as it gets anywhere. But yeah, this is really incredible.
Here we go. Okay, so
it's a great one.
Let's see. We'll zoom in. I was reorganizing paper here for a second. So this is very, very cool. Was this in the collection or this piece sold though, right?
It did. This was one of my mom's pieces, and it was tragic. I'm like, no.
Oh.
But this one and over time I just appreciate it more and more, like the movement within, like, I mean, that's you can like you feel like you're in there with them, and then there's like this like just this like energy around this like tree. It's like super creepy, and the hooded man. I mean, it's just oh my god, it's a masterpiece.
At one point, did this guy was there a different version of this painting where the hooded guy had his arm out reaching towards this guy? I feel like I've seen that where like I'm not sure, honestly. I'll look into that. Yeah, I don't know why. I thought for some reason I'm like, the pen doesn't work. Oh, there's a
it seems like a notorious tinkerer, I didn't know there was so many versions.
Yeah. If it bothered him, he would take it out. He didn't care what people said. He's like, it's my art. I can do what I want. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's keep going. Oh, okay. So this was a strip that's sold. This is an owl cap as the panel. I wanted to show this though. So this was originally gifted at some point to Bernie Wrightson, believe it or not. I'll show the whole page in a second. But yeah, it's actually, right here in the first panel, it says to Bernie with best regards from Frank Frazetta. And then let me get out of this for 1 second. I'll pull up the full piece.
Got Art Thibert. Art Thibert. That's the way I used to say his name.
Let me just get bigger on this. Give me 1 sec. I just want to pull this one up.
I like how Art pops in just when we're pulling up some inks. He smells it in the air.
He smelled the ink.
Frazetta inks.
Here it is. Yeah. So this is a beautiful.
The Johnny Comet. I thought it was Johnny.
Wow.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Johnny Comet was right before Al Cap.
Right.
But the strip didn't go anywhere, and that was his. But he did great work for the Johnny Comet, and he actually really loved cars. So he really loved cars and planes, and you can really see that in the art that he studied them.
Well, and this too to me is Frank doing for Frank, and on Al Cap he was obviously trying to ghost the strip, so it's a different style. This to
exactly.
Me early Frank, and so bad.
And look, they're all Frank. Like obviously, you can see it's all
this right here.
And I think that was his first girlfriend, actually. He fell in love with an Irish girl named Carol, and she was a dancer, and she had legs for days. And he just said he loved like her muscular calves, and like she was incredible. But again, a different day, and her parents said you're not going to date an Italian, and she had to break up with him, and he was heartbroken. So yeah, it was, but the action, and like he said, he gained a lot of inspiration early on from Jack Kirby and his action, and he wanted to be like Kirby. So you can see some of that in here.
It was interesting. I heard an interview. I read an interview where Frank was quite complimentary towards Jack Kirby, and I never even knew that he would be aware of Jack's stuff. And it was kind of neat. Look at this piece. So this is a 10 volt cover.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Those are his this is like a lesson.
It's really cool.
And here we go
with Frank again, like a.
Again, it's just like that. The composition. Again, you have like a triangular composition. Yeah, it's incredible.
Pen? Is he using pen on that?
Yeah, brush. Yeah, he used a lot of brush.
Everything. Oh, brush. Yeah. God, so good.
Yeah, he was freaking great with the brush. Oh my God.
How long would it take him to do something like this? Was he super fast at this, or do you know?
His brush work. I mean, the weird science fantasy. Am I saying that correctly? I'm dyslexic, so I'll say things.
Yeah, no worries. It's close enough. We know.
Yeah. So that cover he did in a night, and he said that he, that he had to work quickly or he'd get bored. So he'd pull an all-nighter, and probably this one as well. Like, a lot of his oils, he did a couple overnight, but it was probably like 2 days because of drying and everything. But most of them were done within a week. He never labored over them longer than a week ever. So 1 night to a week was for most of his art.
Now this is a watercolor piece. This is an early piece.
This is like, as like a beginner artist learning watercolors, I can't wrap my head around how he did this. Like this is like one of my top pieces, and I always forget about it when people ask, because I am obsessed with this piece of artwork, and I am obsessed with like this hanging moss like off this cave. Like
it's like every technique in the book. I mean, he's doing wet on wet. It looks like he's actually just rubbing the paper when the watercolor's still wet. He's doing all kinds of stuff.
He would use his fingers a lot. He was very like he touched his art. He would like rub it in and very sloppy, but also methodical in the Frazetta approach. But interesting about this painting, I actually connected with the Jose Sagreus estate recently, and there's been some connections. It was never confirmed, and my grandpa never like mentioned him in any interviews, so we don't know if it's accurate. But a Jose Sagreus piece. Jose Sagreus was an incredible artist in the 1800s in Spain, and there's an element to a Sagreus paint that is exactly like if you scroll up to the cave. This composition. It is very similar to the Sagreus piece, and I was told by Steve Korshak, who is a collector of Frazetta, that my grandpa did like his work. So there might be a connection there of inspiration, which makes it even better because I love Jose Sagreus. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. And to me, that kind of goes back to the Krenkel thing, where Krenkel was exposing him to all these artists, and Frank was probably felt like a kid in a candy shop going like, oh my God, my imagination is exploding with all these cool ideas.
For sure. Those people are very strange. I love her dress. Actually, I always with my grandpa's costume designs, like his outfits. Like I'm like, he could have been a fashion designer because I love so many of the women's. Like, I mean, not that many have clothes, but if you look at his comic work and see the clothing, it's really beautiful.
And you can see like every color in there too. Like every color is represented in that dress, even though it's white.
Right. Yeah. Like someone needs to make that dress.
Here's another pen and ink, and this is let's see. There's a little bit of writing on the bottom. Let's see what this is. So page 328, Fighting Man. Behind us came the hunting men of Ugor. Okay, so this is 1973. Very light ink wash. Boy, it's good.
It's incredible. I love his armor. I just love the weapons. It's there, and you can see a lot of inspiration. Like if you watch, like obviously most people have Game of Thrones, and you see a lot of like that Frazetta inspiration. And I think that's really awesome.
Well,
I mean,
where is he getting the inspiration? I mean, all the etching in the armor of some of the inks, it's unreal how like
the sword,
the patterns and designs and stuff. Yeah,
I believe a lot of that. I believe that was a lot of his imagination. I really do. Like it was just. things that he wanted to see in the world that didn't exist yet. And that's where that magic comes in.
Like that sword, the hilt of that sword, the flow of it, it's just so amazing. It's like
It's
just
beautiful.
think of that. Yeah.
This one that's hanging
with the
down,
chain link.
Yeah.
hers is great too.
I mean, I can imagine an armorer looking at this going, "Oh yeah, I'd love to make that." Like
For sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And she's so cute. I love the little bit of fur. She's got like the little loincloth thing kind of going on.
And the chain links on it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so great.
He loved putting fur on the girls. He loved that. And
Yeah.
I mean, I really love his interpretation of plants, like his little like leaves. And
Sure.
I love those, like just those little tiny doodles that just
Yeah.
insinuate that there might be like a cliff, and that's like moss going up the side. And I just think it's really beautiful.
You can imagine him like watching the game, just like
Yeah, exactly.
Up in the right corner. What do we got here? We know what this is.
Coffee.
Coffee. He was
That means he
sloppy.
liked it.
Yeah. There was
Oh, here we go.
it's really weird. It might be like a Frazetta curse thing, or I don't know if it's a curse, but I've done a couple pieces that I actually really liked, and I spilled coffee on them, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "All right." I'm like, "This is weird. This is some like voodoo stuff." But
Matrix.
Matrix for sure. But the Norseman, God, this is a lot of people comment on this one. They love his rear end. They appreciate that. They call it cake. That's the new term, cake. I don't know if it's new.
He's got a cake booty.
Anna would
Cake
approve.
booty.
Yeah.
This is so good. I was checking this one out when I was saving all these yesterday. The lighting on the hand, oh my God, it's so awesome.
This one's been swiped a lot, and again, it's flattery to an extent, if as long as it's not over commercialized. But this one's been loved by so many, and I think like even like San Julian and you see these like
Mignola even.
The composition with like the monsters of like the depths of the world coming at this like little person. I just love the perspective in this one.
This guy's body and the different colors that he used on it are just out of this world. I mean, he's got a little spot of blue on this guy's butt, and a little green and a little orange, and you get up into here and it's just this magical dance of cool.
It's I still can't wrap my head around how he did that.
I think my favorite bit is that those rushed paint strokes right to the left of him, on the cape in the background.
Oh, right here.
You could totally see the artist's hand in that. It's just so fast.
This little area right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that kind of stuff. That's when you kind of like see, there he is.
Yep.
It's man, the blending of colors is so insane. Okay, let's keep going, guys. Oh yeah, this is a good one.
God, the way he does animals.
Biting into his skull. Yeah. The intensity in the animals, it's incredible. Yeah. See, like his stuff is again, it's so masculine, and like that's the metal of like heavy metal of nature. I mean, that's what what he wanted to do. It was interesting. I just read this the other day. In the later part of his career, he really wanted to tackle American wildlife, but in like a metal type of way. He said that a painting that he was envisioning was a giant grizzly bear on top of like I keep painting the wrong way because but like an ice cap with like a big grizzly bear with wolves surrounding the grizzly bear. Like he wanted to. So it's and now I don't know if you follow the page on Instagram.
Is this the piece?
Oh, look, there it is.
That could have been the start, because that was unfinished. So it could have been the start. It was so sad because I mean he was struggling with health issues all through the 80s. And then he completely, like, most people know, he lost the ability to paint with his right hand in 1995. And I mean, I believe he was tinkering with this with his left hand, but I think he started it with his right hand. There were a few like that.
Those textures up there are kind of spooky for some reason.
Yeah.
Look at those.
Like obviously he's missing a figure. Like he would have if he could have finished it.
Yeah, you can kind of feel it. Well, it was when I saved it, I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of cool. We might be able to spot something that was here before that he's painted out." Like almost.
Yeah, that's possible. But see, right there, his signature. That's the left-hand signature. If you go down to it, that's when he wasn't able to sign anymore. It was very rare, and he felt really insecure about it. I think that's like some of the reason he couldn't go in the museum was my grandma. Other reasons was because he didn't want fans to see him like that. He wanted fans to remember him like, when he was in his prime. Yeah.
It's such a shame because everybody loved him. It would, it's like, it'd be like you're appreciative. So this is an interesting piece. This is the study for this little painting.
Space Encounter. Yeah. That was done for L. Ron Hubbard.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
They commissioned him for like, I think 8 paintings, and no, my grandpa's not a Scientologist, but he said they were very courteous to him. They paid him very well. And they had great events, and they just respected him, and they still do.
Is this a prelim, or is this because I have
the finished painting also. So this is funny. So apparently this is Frank's zip code, but Frank didn't even know his own zip code because he never paid bills or mailed stuff. Was that your zip code in East Stroudsburg? 18335.
I don't, it's been so long now. You put me on the spot. I don't know. Hold on.
No, it's not a big deal.
No.
But
it might be.
Apparently, it was pointed out to Frank, and he didn't realize that he had put their zip code.
Here's where I live. Come find me.
Yeah, right. Hold on. I'll pull up the finished version. But that was a funny little story that I heard about.
Jim O'Reilly had a quick question about did he have after his stroke, did he have a particular issue with a color or like something like that?
A color?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe he heard something, but maybe it's something to do with stroke. But did he have issues with color after a stroke?
He had issues with everything.
Yeah,
I mean, he was really having to like relearn like painting at that time. I mean, the fact that he could still do it with his left hand and he wasn't left-handed was absolutely mind-blowing. Because I mean, it isn't really your hands. If you think about it, it's your brain. So he just had such a strong brain that he could, get it through the hand, get it going through the opposite hand. It's incredible. But he struggled. It was not fun for him. I'll just say that.
That's so brutal, man. So I didn't have the finished version of that other piece, but I wanted to show this because I had touched on this earlier. So this is the piece that I believe was one of the last covers that Frank did where they kept the original, and it bothered him so much. Is that what do you agree with that this was kind of the last one?
100%. And he has said that he really didn't do his best work for Ace because they were keeping the originals and they weren't paying him what he wanted to be paid. So he was just kind of going through the motions at the end. And I think this is one of his pieces that a lot of fans are kind of like, it's okay. It's like mediocre. But even
perish.
I mean, God, of course, they're all incredible. But even my grandpa, he criticized some of his pieces, like Executioner. He wasn't really big on this piece. He didn't love it. He was like, it's okay. And he didn't hold on to this. Well, obviously Ace took this piece, this original.
So
I don't think he would have wanted it.
When a company like Ace keeps it, is it the owner that's technically keeping it? Do you know, like who owned Ace?
So Edgar Rice Burroughs.
I see. Here we go.
Most of the. Yeah, there he is.
And he's actually painting. This is a photo from Doc Dave. So he's actually working on the thumbnail that we just looked at for the
it's in a book.
And look how small he was painting. Like,
is that a sketchbook?
Yeah. And he wouldn't, that's the craziest thing is he really wouldn't use the right materials. Like even the papers and like, I mean, he just kind of imagine if he had like the right things. But no, he just did it his way. And most of his paintings and his rough works are really tiny. I mean, sometimes fans are disappointed and some are actually surprised and happy because they're like, I can't believe this piece is this small. It's incredible. Yeah. Like he just did like his like tiny little things. I saw actually an artist that I could compare with James Gurney. I saw one of his originals in Norman Rockwell, and he did these like incredibly small little pieces and then like a giant piece. Like he had just such a range, like my grandpa.
So here we have the Jaguar God cover painting. Kelsey,
Yeah.
you recognize
Oh
this,
yeah.
right? This is our
Even
boy
that's smaller than I thought it was.
Frank Turan did the interior art on this one. And then up here we've got Cat Girl. Frank was keeping some pretty nice paintings in the office at that point. And I don't know if this is it, but I see a watercolor set right here. This could be the infamous Disneyland watercolors.
I think you're right. I think it is.
Funny,
I mean,
right?
I remember seeing it all the time when I was a kid in his studio. That was Grandpa's studio. It would have been a bigger mess if my grandma wasn't cleaning it all the time, but he was sloppy.
So actually seeing him work on this in this sketchbook, I had no idea that he did work in sketchbooks, but Roger Oslin was wondering if there were any unseen paintings, and seeing him work in a sketchbook, are there sketchbooks filled with stuff that maybe we haven't seen before?
A lot of his sketchbooks were torn apart. I don't want to go into this too deep, but they were like, sold throughout the years, but before the estate was split. Again, my grandma she'd say, "Oh, I'm keeping all the art," and like, you know, like I don't know what her point was, but she sold it. If you go back on Heritage, you'll find a lot of them like from the sketchbooks, like on Heritage, and they were like selling in like 2002. There were like 90 original pieces in 2002 on Heritage, and that's when my grandma and Frank Jr. were running the museum. So
it's a bit of a bummer. It would be amazing to see like a full Frazetta sketchbook still, you know.
Oh, we have something really exciting, and you guys are going to have to come to the museum. But back in I believe in the early 40s, he made these like little flip books, and I'm like so out of touch with that time. But there's like I think there's like, oh God, I posted one on our Facebook group, and it was like a little teaser, but it was called The Cave Girl. And I guess he was inspired by Edgar Rice Burroughs' The Cave Girl.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's like, I think like 50 pages in it, and it's this big, and it's incredible. Like his artwork, I mean, you could see like he pressed too hard on the pencils, and like, it was like shiny, but he was like, he has like, I think my mom has 4 of them. And they're just these little flip books, and it's the very early years of Frazetta, and we're trying to figure out right now how to like preserve it and present it, because you can't put your hands on it; it's too delicate, and you know, the oils and the stress.
Fun, yeah.
Is that a real skull?
It might be. They collected some weird things. They had a lot of like African artifacts, and
it looks real.
It's a publisher from back in the day.
It's the owner of Ace.
Yeah.
So here's a beautiful, I guess this is Tarzan.
Yep, that's Tarzan. But yeah, most of his iconic inks were for Edgar Rice Burroughs, and I just love like the wash on top. It's gorgeous. The little white lines. I don't know how you guys need to explain to me, like, how does he do that?
That's some sort of white.
It's like an acrylic white paint.
Yeah.
Going over it. Yeah.
What I look at this piece and like, and think about what you said, that he does a day a week, doesn't like to spend more time than that. And you could look at this and think that he must be doing most of this in the inks. Like he's just doing like maybe a gesture drawing and then defining the form. I mean, the courage of this guy in life and in work. I mean, it's such a testament to having the guts.
Underdrawing in there, but like you say, he probably just blocks it in and then goes for it.
Yeah. I really like, if you guys notice too, like this lion. I mean, he almost has like a human, like, I mean, anatomy is very close in animals and humans, but he has like a humanistic thing about him, this lion. And then Tarzan has that very like animalistic. So it's like they're like sharing each other's like energy. Yeah. Like that his loincloth looks like a tail. It's really
look at that.
You know, it's such an incredible, it's like he blended the two together, and his choices were wild.
You just gave me a new thing to pay attention to now when I look at the pieces with animals and see if he's doing that, like projecting that sort of flip, you know, where they're sharing the same kind of mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandpa was like, he really loved animals. And like, you know, I've heard this from a few artists, like you have to paint what you love. Like it shows, like you have to draw what you know. And he knew he would go to the Brooklyn Zoo like for hours, for years, and just like study the cats and like, you know, embody their like spirit. And I think that's how he did what he did. This is just I'm obsessed with. This is one of my favorite inks. The foliage is like, it overwhelms me.
He's got so many varieties too. He must be referencing that on some level, or he's just got a good memory for some of this stuff.
He had a photographic memory. He really did.
Oh,
like
okay.
he really did. And I mean, again, he was very focused on what he liked. So when he liked something, he was obsessed with it. Like he watched King Kong 4,000 times, he said. I don't know if that's an exaggeration, but I definitely watched it with him at least 150 times. So he might not be lying about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was hyper focused, and he, you know, even in Brooklyn, he remembers like in his early years that there was a lot more like green spaces, and it wasn't obviously overdeveloped, and there were parks and, you know, zoos, and when he was turned 40, that's when he bought his Pennsylvania estate because he wanted to be immersed in wildlife again. He wanted to see the green and and he wanted to feel the moss and just, you know, be surrounded by it. So that's why he moved. He didn't like city life. He needed to be around nature.
The thing about King Kong makes me think of brings up Salman Kutcher was wondering if Frank had any favorite movies, and I guess that must have been the favorite.
That
was his Star Wars, I guess.
Yeah, it really was. And Night of the Hunter, he just said Robert Mitchum, like that was his guy crush. Like he loved Robert.
He was very Robert Mitchum-ish.
Yeah, he loved Robert Mitchum, and he loved Night of the Hunter. And I still watch Night of the Hunter from time to time. I actually showed my partner Joey. I said, like, you got to watch Night of the Hunter with me. And my Joey's a photographer, and he just was like, this is incredible, like from a stylized point of view. And that's what my grandpa said, every frame, it's like a piece of art. And you know, that's what he liked. And he loved Disney. His top 3 favorite Disney films were Bambi, Pinocchio, and Fantasia. And we watched Fantasia probably like 500 times. Like, oh, wow. I'm not kidding. Yeah.
You can kind of see the way he draws his like his little pixie fairy girls, kind of just like in Fantasia.
Right.
Exactly. Disney was a huge influence. We can't forget that. I mean, what Disney did in the 1930s with Fantasia, it's like it's really mind blowing. And my grandpa loved classical music, and that's what he painted to. And you know, again, like Fantasia was like that perfect blend of like gorgeous art and aesthetics that he loved, and then classical music like Stravinsky, and that's what you can feel it like. And that's one thing we want to do in our museum is have the music playing that my grandpa was listening to when he was creating, so you can like kind of get into like his vision and feel
Tom
it.
Forsyth was wondering if Frank would like Molly Hatchet, so I'm guessing that's probably a no. He was into the classical.
He was a traditional guy. He loved classical music, and he loved Sinatra, and he loved ELO, and
like ELO.
That's wild.
But Sinatra was always playing in the classical music, and that was his go-to.
Oh, Sinatra, yeah, okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Oh, that was his second male crush, Sinatra.
So
he loved him.
You had said something in an old interview somewhere, Sarah, and I don't know why I can't think of what it was, but it totally, like, I was tripping out. So Frank and you used to play Super Nintendo, right?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And
I love that vision of you guys playing Super Nintendo is so cool.
He was there. Do you remember the icebreaker game? The little, like, they would climb the mountain and break the ice.
Yeah, Ice Climber. Yeah.
Thank you, Ice Climber. And that was like and then the Chip and Dale. It was it's getting blurry, but this is what I do remember of Grandpa. Okay. So he was kind of a slob, like I said, and his Nintendo 64 would always have like an enormous amount of dust in it. Oh. So anytime we went to play it, it never, ever played. It never went on the first time. So he'd get out and he'd do, he's blowing in it, he's like cursing and like cursing the thing. He's like, "I'm gonna kill this thing," and like it was like, I'm like, Grandpa, it's a machine, don't kill it. But yeah, he'd be on his knees on the floor with us, and then he'd play some games, but he just loved watching us doing. Like he was like vicariously living through his grandchildren at that time. I mean, he was that we were his joy because he had suffered so much. Poor guy.
Yeah, when kids are so pure, it's like you get sick of dealing with adults, and you just want someone that's honest and genuine. And kids are kind of that.
Yes. Oh yeah, he loved my honesty. I'd come in, I'd call him Cramps. Like we'd like go back and forth with each other. And he's like, "Don't call me Cramps," and then I just kept calling him Cramps for years. And and he like I mean he was just. Oh, sorry, my dog is barking. I have a giant wildebeest spruce. This is the piece without the pants, and of course it goes against Lord of the Rings because she was supposed to be armored as a man. But he didn't follow the storyline. But he really loved Lord of the Rings as well. He was a big Tolkien fan, and this is actually the Peter Jackson. I think he's brilliant, and I loved Lord of the Rings. Like that's my go-to inspiration. I cry. I like watch it. I'm like, this is so much. Like, I mean, it's beautiful. It's like violent. It's like all the mixtures of our existence is in Lord of the Rings, and it's like if I could live there, I want to move to New Zealand just because of Lord of the Rings. Like, I need to be there.
It's beautiful there. What did they think of his hobbits? His hobbit stuff. The Lord of the Rings stuff is some of my favorite of his, but like if they didn't like her portrayal, I'm just wondering what they thought of his other stuff.
They like the Hobbits. The Hobbits doesn't get a lot of criticism. This is from
Frazetta Girls. You can actually get this.
I love this. Yes, this is one of my favorites.
We did recently, actually, I found, I connected with Elijah Wood on Twitter, and I sent him some of the Lord of the Rings stuff, and he was like he's a huge fan, and he was like so happy that Frazetta loved Lord of the Rings, and he was just the best Frodo ever. Like, crazy. But yeah, I just like look at his like little expression, and like they're just so innocent. You can feel that, and I love it. I love his interpretation. It's beautiful.
So it was back in the day. You're a little too young to remember when Hummels were a big deal. There was these little.
I know Hummels. I love Hummels.
Everyone, I guess those were like Funko Pops for people back then.
The Hummels are beautiful. Joey, my boyfriend, his mom collects them, and she has like a case of Hummels. Yeah, and I'm like, are we gonna get these Hummels when he's gonna come to our house eventually?
Right. Okay, so this is a study for one of the this piece is called Lord of the Jungle, Master of Adventure cover.
Yep.
So these are cool. So this is probably the size of that sketchbook.
Yeah, very small, probably like 5 by 8. Now this piece, it's interesting. See this little pose of Tarzan hanging on the tree. This later became Moon's Rapture.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, he painted out Tarzan and added the gorilla, or I don't know if the gorilla was there in the final, but he added the gorilla, took out Tarzan, and then he put his Frazetta Girl, and it's one of his most popular pieces.
This right. Oh, sorry, I had the wrong tool. This right here. So this is a girl in the final painting standing on a tree.
Correct.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Look, his favorite rough.
He said, I love that. I love his notes.
Yeah.
And I love his handwriting. Right? His handwriting's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Well, he has a great signature too. It's very iconic. So do you know, so this is interesting. So I wanted to ask you about this piece. So the story that I heard was that I believe this is the original. And so someone wanted to buy it off of him, and Frank and Ellie were like, kind of like, nah. Eventually they caved, but then Frank said, well, if I sell it to you, I'm going to do a new one. And so this is one of the rare times that he actually repainted a full piece and not just did paint over. Is that kind of right? Or?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it, the more I learned, he did probably 6 repaints, and it was all because of he really loved the original version, but they needed the money, as that's what he was doing for his career, and they sold it. And I personally like the repaint better on this one. I really do.
Yeah, it's got more texture down here.
And on the planet too in the background.
Yeah.
And just like the female form too, it's better on the eyes. Yeah.
This is a little tighter too, but in a good way, tight and loose. But the details on the gun is great. Jesus Christ.
Love his lizards. Those great lizards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really incredible. You know who's been buying actually some of the originals on Heritage? George Lucas. And
Okay.
he just bought Escape from Venus. That wasn't in the family. That one had been sold multiple times, but now that's going to the Narrative Museum, and I think he'll have like 9 Frazetta originals on display, which is pretty
Kirk
great.
Hammett has 2 or more.
Kirk had 6 at one
He had
time,
6.
but I think he's down to
Here's Escape from
3.
Venus for people, so people can see the piece. So this is the one
Yes.
that George Lucas just bought.
And he actually has it on loan with the Norman Rockwell Museum right now. That's at the exhibit in Massachusetts. I actually just saw this original, and honestly, I think I saw it. I don't know if I saw that at San Diego. I think I saw Spider-Man at San Diego. I believe this is the first time I've seen this one in person, and it made me cry. Like, it was just really emotional, like, to see it, because it's really breathtaking in person.
Your grandfather's work gets me kind of like that too. Honestly, like I said, when I was watching the Billy Tucci video, I was getting a little choked up. Honestly, seeing Frank walking around, it was like, he means a lot to me. You know, people know that I'm like a huge Travis fan, but Frank does. I think because I was raised by my grandfather. I told Sarah before we started the video. So my grandpa is about 5 to 8 years older than Frank, but grew up literally about 2 miles from where Frank grew up. Which I didn't know until yesterday.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and he raised me. So although I'm a West Coast boy, I've got Brooklyn roots.
Yeah,
watching Painting with Fire and watching him talk about the grandkids and just how he lights up and everything, it just totally reminded me of my grandpa. And just I saw that joy he has, the precious grandbabies. You know, those are the best.
Yeah,
you can just see it. He just lights up. It's fun.
Pure love.
Yeah, it's such a great time for people to go through and have that, like, those golden years, and it's like a time of reflection. And I just think, like, grandparents are the best. I mean, they really are. You get through those, like, years of raising the kids, and it's just going through the motions, and then you can kind of sit back and just enjoy, and, you know, send them home when they become too much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you get all
not in your case though, Richard.
all the benefits. So let me ask you this: are you guys doing print sets of this, or is it just you're doing individual single prints? Have you done any like little like 5 print sets?
You know, we haven't. We are selling them as individuals, but we are moving towards printing and publishing portfolios again.
Those would be really fun.
That's just. Yeah. Like, I know you guys want that, and that's like something, like I said, like in the beginning, like the book and having Toshin, and we're gonna really push publishing now. And you know, even like I've been talking about, like the Living Legend, his book that he and my grandmother self-published. It's a great blueprint, but if it was like kind of redone and maybe like given like a hardcover and just like some better scans, like that's something we'd be interested in doing, kind of like revisiting old projects and like enhancing them to be up to date. And then of course there's so much opportunity for new endeavors as well. Up here, I think the action is just incredible on these.
Yeah, the tricky thing I think nowadays is that wall space. You know what I mean? Prints are like big prints are great, but a lot of times like a portfolio is something that you can kind of get and you're able to store it more easily.
Yes, exactly.
So, you know,
that's what your artists need. Yeah, no, that's what artists need, and that's like, you know, our hands. I can't say too much, but our hands have been tied, and that's why we haven't been able to do anything. But we're free and we're gonna do stuff.
Yeah,
so I'm really excited.
Man, this figure is beautiful. Yeah,
I love how his rendering is almost like action speed lines too. It deforms the form of it, but it's also giving it all that movement.
Yeah,
it's so
good the flow. He gets this whole.
Yeah.
Well, and that's again, like it's him, because like my grandpa could get into those positions. Like he was, like I said earlier, very athletic. He was almost like a gymnast, and his strength was honestly incredible. I mean, I saw him hanging on a pole, like his body. This is the pole, and here he is, and he's just hanging from like a gymnast. I'm like, that's incredible. And so I think that he even if he didn't photo reference it, he'd like act it out, and then he could put that like emulate those feelings into lines. It's incredible.
So we'll transition from this figure into sexuality in Frank's art, because I had asked you about, like, I thought it would be interesting to talk about it. So do you guys ever get any sort of backlash from sort of like the sexy girls in Frank's art, and like you know, like with cancel culture? Has it ever been a little bit of a slippery slope with that kind of thing, or?
Honestly, we haven't really had that. I think people just have such a respect for Frank and understand it. And honestly, we have a really big like audience of women who appreciate his art now more than ever. I mean, we look at like analytics on social media, for example, and Instagram. It used to be 80% men, and then 20% women. Now it's like kind of like at a 60-40. And I'm excited about that, because I'm like, good. I want everyone. I mean, it's like children to people that are, you know, 100 love Frazetta, bankers to bikers love Frazetta. There's a range of people that love Frazetta. And like with the sexualization, I said this earlier, but I mean, his men are as naked as the women.
No, I know, that's what I was going to say. I mean, like, this guy,
he's naked.
We would all want to look like a Frazetta man or woman.
Yeah, it's like, you know, he was painting at a prehistoric setting when clothes weren't a thing, and that's.
I'm wondering if he'll have that problem, like if he was to come out today, if there was a artist of equal note, you know, coming out today, would they be hassled for this kind of imagery?
You might be, but I think, you know, the thing is you have to put your feet in the sand and say, this is how I draw. If you don't like it, then it's possibly not for you. But,
yeah, you have to hold strong with it, because if it's really your belief and you have the right intention, like, stay strong. Like, don't let someone else like project their insecurity onto you. And there is nothing wrong with sexy women or sexy men. Like, there's a time and a place where you want to respect that, but we need sexiness to keep going as a human species, guys. That's what drives us. and not saying that like specifically in art, but you know, pheromones, like you gotta dig deep and like really get to like what we are as human beings. And my grandpa understood that, and I think that he just, I mean, like, look at that. Look at the male with the big butt. I know the
backside of this guy. It's smooth as a baby's bottom. This guy just he didn't exercise as much as some of Frank's other guys.
But you know what? He appreciated and photographed men as much as he did women. Like, he really did, because he just loved the human body. He did not look at it in a weird, perverted way. And the hand, that's the Frazetta hand. I love that.
I love that forearm. Look at the veins in that forearm and the hair, and that has got to be one of the best forearms ever inked.
The Kubla Khan portfolio is remarkable. It really is.
It's some of my favorite pen and ink stuff that he's done. I think these are just they're the best. They're so good.
Hey, don't be surprised if my power goes out. By the way,
if you're what?
It's storming here really bad. Don't be surprised if my power goes out.
Kelsey, where are you?
I'm in Louisiana right now, Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Oh, geez. Yeah, you guys are. We're in Florida. We keep getting them every day. We're like, "Ooh, this is scary."
Oh yeah, lightning. You just had a hurricane fly through there.
It was just a tropical storm. Elsa was a baby. When it gets to Category 5, that's when I start getting a little scared. I'm a Floridian now. We just kind of go, oh well.
Yeah, it's rain. What do you mean?
Yeah, our roof's gone. Oh well.
You had talked a little bit about reference. Did Frank have would he ever have little costume pieces like boots and stuff like that, or nah?
No. Yeah. No. He didn't have like any props.
Yeah. Here's another one. Woo, these are so good.
Yeah.
I love that smoke. They're still trying to steal that smoke.
Look at the tiny little city all the way in the back. Oh my god. And it's like this big, like on the original art. It's so small and incredible.
God, I would kill for this piece. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, me too.
Kill to be able to
Whatever
do
comes
this.
to auction.
Yeah. These, like I said, quite a few of these are from Heritage, so someone picked it up. Oh, this is see, now this is one of those pieces that probably like isn't as popular, but I think it's still really nice.
Okay, I have a story about this that I just actually learned. It's very interesting. Now, I want to say before I start the story, I personally love Jeffrey Catherine Jones's work. Oh, okay. I think that he was incredible. And I just love it. I think that he had his own style, and it was just very emotional. But this was actually a piece that Frank did. Now, my grandpa it was very rare to get compliments from grandpa, from other artists. And Jeff Jones, in his mind, he said he was swiping him too often. And he really didn't like that at the time. He was actually really ticked off by it. So this piece he did was to show Jeff Jones that he was a better Jeff Jones than Jeff Jones was. That, like, I mean, and that's like ruthless, you know, like, but you actually can see it if you look in the face, and it kind of makes sense. It does have like a little bit of a Jeff Jones style to it.
Yeah.
Right there.
Structure.
Yep. Yep. And that was, you know, that you had to have like competition. Like this is part of the game. It's in any business. It's what it is.
God,
and
so good.
Yeah.
The lizards, man. Those great lizards.
God.
This is John Gore Fights Back. This is a great piece.
Those big shapes, man, are just so powerful.
This is very Mignola as well. You can kind of see where Mignola's getting his shadow shapes. And
sometimes we do this, Sarah. We turn pieces gray and then we level it super dark, so we get like a more graphic read. But it's you'd be surprised how well like real good art will stand up to it. You know,
might as well be Hellboy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun.
Absolutely.
Well, look, we don't want to keep you too long. I'm going to look at the clock real quick. So it's 12:30. We've gone 2.5 hours. Do you want to start to wrap this up, or can you go like 5 more minutes?
I can go 5 more minutes.
Do you want to read get some of these questions from the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So here, let's we'll remove this. But we really appreciate your time. I just don't want to impose on your generosity.
Guys, I'm having so much fun with you, like, and learning from you, and this is great.
Yeah, no, we're learning from you. So, Norrin, just hanging. Super chats. Are we missing some super chats?
Yeah, we got some chats. Some super chats. Let me see. Here's a super Man of War 665 Neighbor of the Beast for $6.65.
Oh,
hail Sarah, Rich, and Grizzly Adams. I mean Kelsey. Frank's art has driven my sword and sorcery headcanon for the last 5 decades. Hail to your Gramps. All right. Well, that was not a question, more of a comment.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
I actually had a question. You mentioned in those Batman watercolors that I did on Instagram, and it got me thinking, do you know if Frank was ever lukewarm or not happy about a piece that ended up becoming a fan favorite? You know?
Oh God, there were probably many of them. Off the top of my head, I can't think of them because, you know, he was confident about his pieces to the public. He didn't really show that vulnerability. But yeah, there were. I'm sure I can't answer specifically though. I'd be lying.
All right, William C. for $5. He just says thank you for this and every super fun Sunday.
Oh, no problem.
It is super fun.
It's our pleasure. Hey, Sarah, I had a question for you. Like, in the last couple of years, have you ever heard a story about your grandpa that kind of surprised you? That was like you went, wow, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that about him. Maybe someone share something with you that kind of you went, oh, okay, that's a little tidbit I didn't know. Or
the Jeff Jones story was like, that's that. But, you know, that one was the most recent because there's a rumor that's going around that my grandpa said he was the best living painter, but that he never said that. Like, and that's not to take away from Jeff Jones and his ability. I think,
I'd heard that too. That Frank was very complimentary towards his work, but I don't know where the source was. But no, that never. It was a Frazetta historian that said that, and it was to their benefit of selling Jeff Jones' work. Right. Like he actually sell his books too.
yeah, exactly. But you know, to say like. I find like to just read his like his interviews. It's like I said, Grandpa was Grandpa to me. I knew him one way, the world knew him another way. But like reading his old interviews and getting that insight of like his mindset and like how he perceived himself and how he perceived art and how it should be done. That's it fascinates me. And honestly, I read the interviews like at least once a week because it's just so like I've always been like a truly sentimental person. Like I collect. I have boxes and boxes of like memory things and to have these like old magazines that I've been collecting and to read through them and know him at a different time. It's all like it's a lot for me. And I mean, any person that tells me the stories, they're mainly grandpa stories. When fans come and they talk about grandpa, it's always like a very positive experience. With my grandma, I hear a lot of crazy things, and I'm like, wow.
But I think we all understand that your grandma was trying to protect Frank's work, and you know, there was probably some insecurity there with just, you know, it's look, like I said, I've worked around some real famous artists, just, you know, luckily throughout my career, and people get real weird around them. You know, it's not all people that want to do nice things with you. There's a lot of greed and funky stuff that goes on, territorial weirdness that pops up. Kelsey knows, because you
gotta watch yourself.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And
my grandma
for art.
It's so true. And they had to, especially at the end, and when he was becoming more and more famous, they dealt with a lot of weirdness and a lot of scams, and just, you know, people promising things and never came to fruition. So they were very guarded at the end. And I think that's, thank you, Richard, because that's important. It's like, they weren't just the way they were because of just for the sake of it. It was from a series of events.
Defense, self-preservation.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. So this was so cool. So I wanted to ask you, we hadn't even done the interview, and I would love to have you come back on Frank's birthday next year. And can we do a birthday show?
I would love to do a birthday show. I would love that. I'll have it on my calendar as soon as we're off.
I think about your grandpa's birthday days before it comes, and I go, I'm gonna have a Frazetta day.
You know what? I'll give you a bunch of photos. I have I'm going through like old slides and photos, and we can show everyone like just unseen things, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, and oh man, that would be so cool.
Hi,
let's do one more super chat from Cantonese Comic Kid for $5. Do you see?
Thank you for watching all that, Kelsey. We appreciate it, because it's
no problem. This is kind of a comment / question, I guess. To help Sarah Kelly and her grandfather worked of a Vampirella 6 Warren Mag cover. Frank didn't like the face that Ken did, and he redid it.
Yep, he's correct. That's the story.
What cover is it? I'll look for it real quick. I can pull it up.
Vampirella number 6.
Okay, let me
Thank
Google
you. I love when the fans help. That's really appreciated. I don't ever want to come off like I know everything, because I absolutely do not.
Okay. That was actually, he was answering. He was telling us which cover that was. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, very cool. There was another couple while he's looking for that. Let's see. Ryan Arthur was wondering what was your favorite of Frank's work. I think we might have gotten to that, but
there's
so many, right?
There's so many, and honestly, like, I think my favorite thing about his art, because it does change. Like, okay, like Golden Girl. Golden Girl is I'll say I'll have a top 5. But Golden Girl is just, for me personally, it connects to me because I love nature and I love beautiful women, and like it's just like this like whimsical, like feel good.
Yeah.
And it's a watercolor, so I can't even like comprehend how.
Yeah, you don't even.
Made it look
that's
so
even
easy.
that's even the best, when you can't even explain it. It just speaks to your soul for whatever reason.
Yeah, like, and you look at the little elements, like the little parrot, and then the little frog, and the beautiful storks in the back, and then the panthers are like overlooking her with the wolf, and it's just it's.
I'll pull that one up.
Thank you. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, I got it. Well, let me.
Comic Book Bob was wondering if the family had any communication or relationship with Boris these days. Were they friends, Boris?
No. He was really competitive with Boris. I think like he felt, he didn't like to be compared, and I understand why. They have they're different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
This
is great. Yeah.
Yeah, look at the butterflies and again the foliage and the flowers.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it kind of captures a little bit of that early Disney vibe with Frank's work sort of blended into it.
Exactly. And that's probably why this is like, and this was actually done at an earlier date. He copyrighted it in 1970, but I believe this one was done in the 50s.
Oh,
And
wow.
and I truly I think you're right on, Richard. Like I'm a huge Disney fan, like the old animations.
This looks
And
Have you
this
seen the
is
original of this?
yes.
Is there color pencil in this too?
There might have been.
It almost looks like some color pencil in there, like in the grass, even in her leg there, her skin. I mean, maybe it's the texture of the paper.
You might be right. And at the time I saw the original, I wouldn't have known like what to think of what. But no, it's a really small piece. I think it was like, oh god, 8 by 12, like really tiny. Yeah. So I mean, detail in it for being that tiny is
no
look at the wolf eyes. See how he doesn't
this was like
11.
I thought this was way big.
No, this is really small. And this was based on his girlfriend too, his first girlfriend, Carol. See the long legs and he'd get really annoyed when people said they were all Ellie. He was like, "No, they're not." Like I had plenty of muses, Bridget Bardot,
that drove Ellie nuts. Right?
I know that's what I was
going to say. Sophia Loren.
We're selling that one.
Oh yeah, Grandma was. I think she was kind of open to it. I mean, she wasn't. There were things, but
now is this the Vampirella cover? This is Vampirella 7, but I couldn't find a 6 that had what I thought they were describing. So I think
his.
Is this the piece?
No, that's just Grandpa's piece. That's
okay. So shoot, I wasn't really sure what was it done for Harris Comics or who was it done for? The company for the so is it Ken Kelly?
Do you know? Yeah, it's Ken Kelly. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, while you're looking for that, William Riley for $2. Big influence on my artwork. Love.
Is she against the wall or walking down an alley?
Yes.
Walking down an alley?
Yes, she's walking down the. She's walking down the alley.
Oh yeah, I mean, this isn't a very good piece. Not to be mean, but I mean, it looks. It doesn't. I mean. You'll see what I'm saying. I mean, it looks like either someone that maybe is getting a little old and can't draw as well as they used to, or
there it is. You got it.
Yeah, here it's this right here, right? Am I still sharing my screen?
Oh wow! God, that's such a That's strange. Yeah, it's really
it's just it's a little stiff, you know. A lot of
he redid the face in that.
I guess he helped him on the face, supposedly.
Because it does have Frazetta-isms in it,
Yeah, like the eyes have the Egyptian queen kind of eyes.
Yeah, I see that. And then the blue hues and the purple on her skin tone.
Yeah. Ken might have been rushed, though. You know, it might have been one of those things where they're like, hey, we need a painting like quick. And then he did it and was like, oh, man, the editor is like, you know, saying it's not right, you know. Weird stuff can happen. You never know. In the heat of the battle.
What year was that? What do we know? What year that was?
Let me see I'll look. Oh, it's not dated.
No.
Yeah. It looks
I'll have
like
to look into that.
Maybe late 70s, early 80s.
Okay. If I'm guessing. So I don't know when Ken started his career. I don't know much about Ken Kelly's career, but
I really don't either.
Hans Roger was wondering about a photo book. I mean, you guys were saying that he was a real photo nut. Have you ever thought about releasing some of his photography, like Frank Frazetta photography?
Yeah, we've thought about doing that. It's just a matter of getting the scans and then having them, like, you know, putting them on a file and having the file right. So we're working on it. A lot of the assets in the family were split up, and you know, I personally don't have access to most of the photography.
I wonder if people would dig that. You know, like I know there's other artists, actors or writers that do photography, and it's like a hobby, and some of it's really good. I imagine there being some sort of market for that, at least as fans of Frank. You know.
Yeah, I mean, so many fans have said, like, what are you going to, like, make a biopic? Like, there needs to be, like, a film about Frazetta's life. And, I mean,
who would play Frazetta now? We'd have to go back in time again.
I know. Well, they have some really cool technology coming out now.
That's true.
VR. I mean, oh, my God. I can, like, I'm like, this is crazy. We're really getting into the sci-fi. Yeah. But I think Hugh Jackman. People always say Hugh Jackman.
Oh, yeah.
Like the older.
Yeah, he has the vibe.
Yeah, yeah. But I found this gentleman. His name was Nolan Gerard. I can't remember his name because you know how everyone has screen names and then real names.
Right.
So now they're all like really messed up in my head. But he's like a young guy with like he's just so handsome. Like I saw him on camera and I was like, wow. And I'm like, you need to play young Frank Frazetta. And he commented back and he's like, sure thing. So well, yeah, right. We'll see. The studio wants to pick that up.
Did Frank ever letter any of the comics that he drew?
Yeah.
He might have. I'm not sure if he did. He might have though. Frank can't give you
he was busy drawing the pages. But,
yeah.
There's a great photo of him actually turning in art at the EC offices. It's I don't even know where I saw it, but I love that photo because he looks so cool and he's turning in art. It's just very like weird, like whoa.
He's so cool. That's so true.
Is he smoking in it? I think he's smoking, right? Does he have like a cigarette?
Oh,
and
he smoked. He loved smoking cigarettes. He loved it. But I guess he didn't start until.
Right
oh yeah, he didn't start smoking until he moved out to Pennsylvania. I guess in Brooklyn, he really wasn't like too much of a. I take that back. He started casually smoking like in his 30s, but he got really heavy into it like in his 40s and 50s and.
Yeah,
and it's a thing to do. Everyone was smoking.
Might have been a little stress too, dealing with his health and stuff. Trying to relieve a little stress in any way you can. Cigarette every now and then.
Yeah.
Well, for sure, he didn't really do his drugs of choice were nicotine and caffeine. Those were his drugs.
Did he drank alcohol though? Yeah, like sometimes would he drink?
No.
Oh, really?
Really? Wow.
Nope. He was not. He wasn't even a social drinker, really. I mean, maybe like a beer, maybe a half of a beer. Right. But no, he was just a caffeine addict. I mean, he had like 3 pots of coffee a day. So everyone has their vice.
Yeah.
Was he drinking like Folgers, like the old school, like
percolating?
Sure. Everyone did.
The cheapest stuff.
Sure. You get a bottle. You grab a bottle of coffee with the screw up lid, and you can put your terp in it when you're done.
Yeah, he was probably drinking the turpentine too, like accidentally dipping the paintbrush in the wrong cup.
Well, Sarah, seriously, this was incredible. As a first guest, like for this like 2020 kind of thing that we're doing, I mean, God, you knocked it out of the park. It was incredible.
Oh God,
thank you enough.
Thank you guys. Thank you for inviting me. I've been really looking forward to this, Richard. I never forgot you. I'm like you and Kelsey.
No, I know.
What happened?
So I'll tell you the truth too. I was it was a big deal for me. So I wanted to make sure it was good, but I didn't want to be one of those people where I like sent you a note and like was making excuses. And so it probably wasn't the best move to not contact, but it's just like you said. I seem
life happens
on camera, but I'm a pretty nervous person. So
I am too. We're all in good company. Like, I started flushing.
Kelsey and I were both a little scared, to be honest. Were you scared today before we went into this, Kelsey?
Like I told you, the more I thought about it, the more I got scared. So I just got busy doing other stuff, and then my mind is off of it. And then here we are, and we're getting on with it.
Well, I think like every artist I've met like so far has been like, like introverted in a way, like at Norman Rockwell Museum. That was like my latest event that I went to after COVID shut down and we couldn't go anywhere. But I noticed like all the artists in the room, we'd all like talk to each other for a little bit and then like kind of like just move away. Like we're done. And it was really refreshing because we all like knew when that time was up. And so I think, it's uncomfortable. But again, the fear is what makes us grow. Yeah. And we have to keep pushing forward, even if we feel like we're dying inside.
we're all on the YouTube now, but Dan,
it's a whole new world.
Look, if the Frazetta girls ever do a YouTube channel, it would do really well. And I mean, it's there's a learning curve with it. It'll be a little cringy at first and hard to do, but it might be something you want to consider. Look, you already know you have so many people that would support it and that love you and love your family. So it's like, the what would you call it? The safety net is there for you. And everyone wants you guys to succeed. All the
presenters. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I think the more confidence I have in understanding his career and like actually being able to talk about his art with like confidence, that's when I'll feel like that's the time to jump in. But it's something I've been thinking about for a while, and I'd love to have you guys on, and then have everyone that's brought me on bring them back as a guest, and like always reciprocate. So this is the best thing for me, is just the connections and being able to, we know that we're not alone in this world, and we all have like, similar anxieties and fears and then joys. So it's incredible to do this, and I appreciate it. And thank you for the encouragement. Thank you guys for having me.
Seriously, like I want to see you keep drawing. Thank
you. I will.
Frank said in the Painting with Fire documentary, he said there's room for more great Frazettas doing art in the art world. So your grandpa wanted that for you guys.
For sure. And Bill Sinkevich said it best. I'll leave it on this note. Sure. He said Frazetta doesn't mean Pellucidar Tarzan. Frazetta means art. So it's like that was so inspiring. Again, he's like very poetic. And I go, I'm like, oh my God, Bill, that's right. And we all need to find our individual like style and show the world who we are. And that's the point. So I promise to put in the work and get better.
Even with Frank's work, I don't honestly like I know it was a big thing for him, but I don't think of him as purely a fantasy artist. I just think of the whole scope of his work, and then I think of a level of excellence, more than anything, honestly.
That's very well said. It's true, because he had a range. He was doing funny animals, and then he was doing wolves ripping heads off. So he was very diverse.
Yeah, right. So Sarah's on Instagram. You can follow her on Instagram. She's on Twitter and Facebook, because someone wanted to see some of your artwork. So you can follow Sara Frazetta, which it's Sara Frazetta, and then also you can follow Frazetta Girls to follow the site. And I have all the links in the description box. And I did link to both museums, so I have Frazetta Girls and the East Stroudsburg one, because we want to give them support too. I would never want to see them lose that
the art.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about the art. I mean, anytime you can see an original, go see an original. It's like, family politics are besides the point. It's about Frank, and that is the most important thing. It's about his art, and I always encourage people to go see it for that reason.
Okay, well, thank you so much. We'll say goodbye in the private room, but all right, so we're gonna sign out, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm gonna go actually hit the grocery store and buy some food, and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna watch this.
I'm gonna go eat
I'm not.
food.
I know Sarah won't watch it, but I have to check it out and see what we did. Our handiwork.
I'll just hate myself.
Yeah, same here. I'm with you. I'm going to go do something else.
So Sophie's gonna go smoke and think about Frank.
Yeah.
So okay, we're gonna end the broadcast now. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll talk to you all later. Bye.
Guys.
Later, gang.
Wave, Kelsey. We have to all wave like Brady Bunch.
All right.